Looks like we're live. We got another one, guys. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to episode 14 of me live streaming my attempt to make an operating system in JavaScript, basically, using React and Next.js and just sheer will, essentially. And yeah, really excited for the episode today. I think, last episode I was saying we were going to do like animations and start menu stuff, but I think we'll probably do that next episode. And this episode, like this whole week setting up to this, I kind of got into a bit of a tangent with emulating x86 within the browser. And I knew it was possible. I'll show you guys some examples and stuff. And then I just wanted to see, I felt the OS that we have now was good enough where we could make our first app. And I think having that app is going to help in a lot of things to allow us to do a lot of testing on things that require two apps to be running. So I'm really excited though, because the results have been really pretty surprising, I think. And I think people are going to be like, wow, that's crazy. I mean, maybe not. We'll see if people have seen this before, but I thought it was pretty cool. So there's a lot you can do with it anyways. That being said, I think we should just jump right into the episode recap from last episode. I'm going to shoot over to the code here. Got my notes, copy my commit history so we can take a peek at it. And just go into the project here and take a look at what I've done. What have I done? So every week I do all these commits. Did my typical Npm updates. Updated my to-do list that I've been updating lately. Did some like refactoring, cleanup. Always do that kind of stuff. Tweaked the wallpaper color a little bit. Minor stuff, you know. And really got into some styling. Really kind of styled it a bit more. Got it a bit more accurate that way. Got it saving window positions. And that was the main things, I guess. It was a lot of styling stuff. Today is going to be more functional stuff. So let me show you guys. I'm just trying to think how we want to take this. I have a bunch of little refactors and stuff we can do. Let's just get into that stuff first, and then we'll kind of see as we go the stuff I'm talking about with the x86, because you might like, I'm talking about running Linux in the OS as another window, like virtual machine style. And it'll have access to networking, so you could go into like connect to IRC within let's say the damn small Linux is a distribution of Linux, a small one. You could boot that up, go into IRC and actually connect and do chatting within my fake OS as if you're running a virtual machine of Linux. And I also have another way where you can actually access a fake drive within my virtual machine. So you have Linux running, and from within the terminal, you can actually look at our file system, our fake file system, and actually look and read files. So we can actually, we'll look at a demo here where I'll open up Linux and we'll actually look at the content of my shortcut files, something that my OS can't even do. But I can run a virtual machine and access the fake files and read them. So that's some meta stuff right there, I think. But we'll get into that, yeah. For now, let's get into some refactors and such. So this episode is going to be a similar format to last episode, where I'm going to look at my commits that I had throughout the week, because I just did so much that it's just too much for me to just remember it all and be like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So here throughout the week, I did like 36 commits, changed 54 files. I've kind of written down notes of everything I've done, and we're going to kind of go through them, and I'm going to explain as I go, like, here's what I did this, here's where I did that. So you see there's a lot of stuff we did. So we're going to essentially write pretty much all that code today and explain what it does. And probably refactor it a bit. I've already kind of changed my mind on the way I did a few things. So that's the beauty of writing it over and over and over again. So we'll keep this handy then. We'll need that. But we're going to go into the code and we're going to see what I have for my notes. So update my to-dos. I don't remember what I wrote in my to-dos, so I'm going to go to that change thing, this little change log here, like so, and I'm going to reference that just so you guys know, so I'm not just pulling them out of thin air, but we'll write them here in our notes at the same time, and we'll kind of, again, go through them and maybe update them as we go. And feel free to throw some messages in the chat at any point if you have any questions or anything you want to say, and also feel free to throw some comments in after the fact if you're not watching this live. And if you like what I've been doing, you like the kind of stuff I'm talking about, you like the presentation, whatever it is, if you like something, throw me a like. And if you like it enough to see more of it, throw me a subscribe, because it's a motivator for me, and it kind of shows me that things are going in the right direction. So keep that in mind, please. So let's look at my notes here. What did I do? So I broke this piece out here. I've put this as two things, but it really isn't two things. This index history, that's a kind of a big deal. I'm referring to like the Z index of Windows, and to like, let's see, you click one window and then you click another one that kind of goes over top of that, and you click one that goes over top those. Just kind of remembering that stacking order essentially. So I'm going to update that. I wonder if I should zoom in on the text. I think it's reasonably readable, but maybe I'll zoom in a bit. Let's see here. Yeah, that might be a little bit better for you guys to read. So other than that, that part's good. Multiple instances of app I've got in my notes, but we're actually going to do that this episode too. We're going to have the ability for one app, let's say this virtual machine thing I'm making, it can run multiple images because I'm allowing it to open multiple windows pointing to different URLs is my plan. So, but yeah, we'll do that. So I'm not going to put that on my notes here because we're just going to do it. No maximize on auto resizing. I think I fixed that too. Yeah, so we're going to have a concept called auto resizing too, because these emulators, it kind of changed the resolution. Like if it's on text and then all of a sudden it opens up the X desktop, let's say in this Linux example, the resolution changes and stuff. And I've actually kind of figured out a simple enough way to update the window on the fly for that. So I want to introduce this concept of like auto sizing. And when auto sizing is enabled, we're not going to allow the user to resize the window or maximize it, but we are going to allow the app to kind of change the window dimensions. What else do I got in my notes here? Icon hover over text. Icon, oh yeah, the icon's got a lot of styling issues, honestly. I'll make a note of that one, yeah. Icon hover over text, it doesn't look right. It's like the box is there, but the text goes way over that. It's going to be tricky for Windows. I don't know if you guys haven't looked at it much, but with Windows 10, like the shortcut icon, or just any of the icons in general, the text, when it's the way it truncates and stuff, it's not so easy to replicate in CSS. There's some logic going on there. I don't really know how they're doing it exactly, but it acts differently depending on, is an icon below it? Is it a certain amount of words spaced a certain way? It's a little tricky to figure out exactly how to reverse engineer that one. So another thing I want to add to the desktop, I want to be able to delete icons. Oh, this is another cool thing I forgot to mention to you guys that we're going to have today, is the ability to drag and drop in files. So talking about this emulator, like I was saying, you have an ISO file, like a CD image. You could download that on a website, have, where in Chrome it pops up a little bottom download bar where it's like, you did a download here of the ISO. Go to my website and then click on that and drag it onto the desktop, and it'll literally appear as if you copied that to your desktop. And it'll be super fast because you're just copying it to your local browser and you're not uploading anything. So, and it can do almost 2 gigabytes basically is the maximum. So let's say you have a 1 gigabyte ISO, you drag that on. For me, it takes like 1.5 seconds to be on the desktop, and then you click it, and like 1.5 seconds or like half a second later, you're booting up Linux. So it's actually incredibly fast. Select multiple. Yeah, that's another one I wanted to add to my list here. Just, how in Windows you've always been able to kind of make that little square you can drag on the desktop where you can select multiple items. I've always enjoyed doing that, just doing the little dragging motion sometimes. And also sometimes it's useful to select multiple items. So I want to have that, but it's not trivial to do that. So that's on the list. I haven't done that yet. What else here? File manager on drag and drop support. So I've got that on my notes, right? So like I told you guys, we're going to do drag and drop support today. But one thing I'm going to add that I haven't done yet is a loading indicator. So there is like that 2 seconds where you're waiting, let's say if you're doing almost 2 gigabytes, where you're like, what happened? Is anything happening? Or if you do over 2 gigabytes, there's also no error. So I need some kind of indicators. The ability to download files in the file manager, that's important. Like right now in my fake OS, if you double click something, it's not going to download it. It's going to try to fake open it in one of my fake apps. So I don't know if I should call any of this stuff fake. That was another thing I was thinking about yesterday in regards to whether to keep saying OS, like I'm making an OS. But it's like, if you want to be very liberal with Operating system. Okay, what does that mean? You know, like it's like a system for things to operate on or to run on. If you're going to be like that and not try to dig into what it could mean, then I think it could fit the bill what I'm making, because I am making some kind of system that's like, it looks like Windows, sure, but I've made the infrastructure for how the apps work and how it all interconnects and the visuals. So who's to say it's not an operating system of sorts, you know? Obviously, it's not doing advanced memory management or any of that wonky stuff that I'm not going to try to pretend I understand much about. One other note I wanted to add is an open with dialog. That's going to be cool once we have more apps. So let's say you have a zip file that you drag onto my desktop. You could double click that, and let's say it'll be, hey, do you want to open that in DOS as like a DOS image? Do you want to open it in a compression program? Do you want to just open it as a folder right away? So there's going to be some cool options there. Almost better than Windows, honestly, because Windows, if you have a zip file, you got to do like an extract and stuff. I was thinking for mine, because this browser FS has a zip extension where you can make a file system based on a zip file. So maybe double clicking could instantly make a file system and then go into it like a special compressed folder, which I guess Windows kind of does actually. And then it opens up that, like, is it a compression program? I'm not going to play with it right now, but it doesn't feel the same. I want it to almost feel like, oh, you're just going into another folder, because in a way you kind of are. But that's just my little design style. So those are those notes. And if you see here, this V86, this is essentially what I've done this week that we're going to do. That's the name of the library for doing this x86 emulation. And I'm going to copy in a bunch of notes here of things I didn't do yet. And we'll just talk about the things I did do. So we'll show you the things we did do. I'll talk about the things I didn't do. So, but save and restore, I've actually got this working, but I haven't done any code for it here within the app. But I had it working where this was really cool, because so let's say I want to boot this big Linux disk or whatever. Let's say it takes a minute, 2 minutes to boot, and you want to get it in a perfect state where when someone runs it, they can just right away see, oh, it's in this cool thing right away. Essentially, you can do that. So it's going to be insane. Like, I could have a shortcut on my desktop that's like Linux, and you click it, and then within like 1 second, you're literally just in Linux and can move the mouse and everything, and it just works. Like, that would be the dream for it. With networking and file system, like I was saying. But both of them are pretty garbage, by the way. They're not good, so, but they're not bad, you know. Dynamic file system, that I don't have. So where I was saying, remember, where you can list the files that are in Linux, you can't list files that you've dragged in, only files that were already in my pre-existing public folder that I've made like a JSON structure for. And the trick to this, part of the problem here is I could make it dynamic, because I've actually got a JavaScript version of creating this JSON file now. But at first I had a Python version, and I'll show you guys the transition today, hopefully. But what was the issue with dynamic? Oh, even if so let's say you drag in a new file, and I make that in a new dynamic JSON file. So when you're in Linux, you see the file and you go to read it. When you go to read it, the V86 emulator tries to do a network request to get it, but the network's not going to be able to see it because it's in my fake OS, you know? So the files in the public folder, they really are on the network, but the fake ones, they're like in an IndexedDB storage on the website. So to get to those files, I would think I would need like a service worker that intercepts fetch requests, and then I could repoint those back at BrowserFS. So that's another episode, and I don't know if that's more like if that's useful or not. I think it would be, because so let's say you have my Linux OS, you could drag something into my desktop that's useful to you, but then you could just go into the Linux OS and download something. I don't know. It's an edge case right now. I mean, what am I even making here? I don't even know. You know, how far do you want to go with this? So, but I'm going to go further. So loading indicators, like I do have the ability to know when it's loading certain things. So I could, you know, like if you guys have ever used Virtual PC or VirtualBox or anything, just kind of that visual is what I want. I've got a bit of it now, but I don't have any menus or anything. And this is another thing where it's useful to have an app to continue to build the OS more, because now that I have a useful app, now I have a reason to make a menu bar, you know, and maybe a title bar or system bar or something. Other pieces of the window, basically. And then, like I said, working on the Z-index to get the different window positions now that I can open multiple windows, now that I have more than just hello world, you know? So that'll be another good thing, and which is what I basically noted here. Icon toolbar, menu bar. This could be one thing here. Icon toolbar / menu bar, let's say. Just some kind of bar for accessing the functions of the app, basically. What else for my notes? So the bug here. So I'm going to remove this, and we'll discuss this next. I've fixed the issue with this npm update not updating the package.json file. It's funny actually, so we'll get to it. But let me just delete that for now. I mean, that's the last thing actually on my notes. So let's do our first commit of the day and just say updated notes. And then let's get right to, like I was saying, about the npm updates and this link right here. So basically, it turns out that in a recent version of npm, they removed it. And I think I got the update where they removed it while we were doing this stream this year. And that's what's going on. So you see here, like, this is a conversation from just a month ago. Force npm update to update package.json, same as 6. So it worked like that in 6. I'm not crazy. And the documentation actually showed since 5 that it said, the documentation was like, since 5, it works this way. And even just recently, when it didn't work that way, the documentation still said that. But I've also found the commit where they just removed all that. So they've essentially just changed the behavior again back to the update command not updating the package.json file, which is kind of making me want to go to Yarn or something like that. You know, I'm a little tired. Like, to me, this is a breaking change. I was using this functionality. They're like, oh, you wouldn't want to use it, or sure, there's plenty of arguments not to use it, but for my use case, I think it was fine. So it's like, I literally have no option now. And I looked through some of the like proposals before they did this, and they suggested like to use a -- latest or something like Yarn. But I don't see anywhere where anyone acted on it. You know, it's like they just did half of it. And now it's up to someone else, up to people like me that have an issue with it to like add that functionality, I guess. It's frustrating anyways. So all I've done in my local machine is I've just moved back to npm 6 for now. Because now when I do npm update, it works the way I wanted it to earlier, and the way it worked back in my January streams. So long story long, that's what I'm going to do there. Let's go back into the code and get into the npm updates, and now they'll probably work the way that I wanted them to a long time ago. Pretty much all the last couple months. So we do our typical npm outdated to figure out what's outdated, what's missing. It looks like a couple things. Let's make this bigger and see. So type stuff, dev dependency type stuff, it looks like. Browser FS? What? Oh no, that's just being glitchy, I think. That's wrong. Current 2.0. Did they just recently release 2.0? Because I was using Git because they were on like beta for a long time. For like ever. Releases. Come on. No, it's still beta. 3 years ago. Yeah, so Git's the latest. That's just wrong. That part of npm outdated. Fail number 23 for npm. Well, hopefully it doesn't try to change that when I run npm update. We'll see. ESLint, okay. Husky. Oh, Husky's jumped all the way to 6. I'm going to try to do it. 3JS, we want to stay the same. Styled components, cool. That got an update. And Next.js also got an update, I think. Oh, and we're going to actually do something that I think is related to that update, but we'll get into that in the next couple items here. So let's do npm update, and let's see if it now works the way I wanted it to. Also, let me confirm here, npm-v. You see, now I'm back on version 6. So now when I run npm update, it updates not just the lock file, but also the package file, which in my use case is perfectly fine. Also powered by Purple Red Bull today, by the way. Purple Room, Purple Red Bull. I actually didn't realize that I had purple both until I held them up side by side and looked at the camera, but it's a coincidence. My shirt also has some purple, but perhaps I was in a purple mood. I don't know. Man, this is a slow update. I feel like npm updates got a lot slower. I don't know why. Well, while it's doing that, let me kind of look at my next change, because I can do it and then just stage them separately. So let's move on to the next change, which is, what is this saying here? This version of npm is compatible with, my lock file is too new. I'll try to do my best with it. Oh man. So you win some, you lose some. I downgraded to get one feature and I lost another, it seems. Well, let's see how it does, but maybe we need to delete our lock file. I don't know if I'm in the mood to do that. Hopefully it'll work okay. So let's get to this other thing. This max lines that I've had, this hopeful, hey, only 80 lines kind of thing. I'm gonna nix that for now, I think. Because to be honest, it's hopeful, but some of these files are gonna start getting a little big, I think. I mean, I already had to do it for my theme. I might not need to do it again, but you know, I'm debating it again because it helps me remember, like, oh man, this file's getting out of control. Maybe I should do 100 lines for this. It's still too many. 80 by 80 is nice. It's so arbitrary though, so let's just get rid of it, honestly. I think most people frowned on that rule anyways. So I'm gonna get rid of it. So it did the updates, massive amount of updates it looks like. So it did change my browser FS. God darn it. I did not want that. Well, so it changed a bunch of stuff. I'm okay with some of these. So now it did update package like I wanted it to, good. But I did not want it to update browser FS. Oh, that's weird. It says it did here, but it clearly did not there. That's weird. That's got me scared. So anyway, it did most of what I wanted. Let's run npm updated again and see what we got. Okay, good. It still has browser FS marked there. So I don't know why it listed it there. That's just more npm wonkiness. So let's do Husky because I want to do that one too. And because it's jumping to 6, it's not going to do it automatically. So Husky was a dev dependency. So we'll do save-dev to make sure it stays that way. And we'll go to 6.0 like it says there. This could have some breaking changes. Let's do a quick peek and see if what's broken now. Husky. I don't know which one it is. Husky npm. There we go. It's this one, probably. Yeah, 4 million. Oh, I just wanted to go to Git to see what you guys broke. Let's see here. 6 days ago. Oh, okay. After being in early access, breaking change. Husky init has been moved to its own package. I don't need to re-init anything. Programmatically, sorry. Okay, it doesn't seem like it's going to break anything, but who knows? Famous last words, right? So let's commit these two package changes as stage those separately here, and say we did npm updates, and then we also did the max lines thing. Max lines. No more max lines. Should I say that? Yeah, that's what it sounded like I said. So. All right, what's next? So this is kind of foreshadowing, perhaps, but I want to put more things in the public folder, like libs. Like for the v86, we need to put the lib in there. So we should probably ignore the public folder for a few things anyways. Specifically, I think ESLint I wanted to ignore it for. Yeah, we don't want it to do any linting. And is the public folder going to be linted? I think it is right now, but there's no JavaScript in there, but we don't want that. So let's just ignore A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. It's over here. There we go. Ignore patterns. And I think this is supposed to be an array, but I actually have no idea. So let's just double check. What is this? ESLint, ignore patterns. Yeah, looks like an array there. So let's do it array style and just have public in there. So ignore public. Public is stuff for the public, not for linting. And where else did I want to ignore it? In prettier. Prettier does not need to be changing the formatting of those files. And where else did I want to ignore it? Nowhere else, I think. I don't think I have any other. I don't want to git ignore it. I need it still. Definitely. Okay. So what was that again? Ignore linting and formatting for public, not in, for public. I don't need those quotes either. Those are just slowing me down. Okay, so here's the next thing. Upgrade to Webpack 5. I think this, I don't know if Next.js just got this, but I just noticed this message a few days ago in my console. Do they say when this was added? Well, it says here they will soon adopt Webpack 5. I don't know if it was with the recent update, but I did an npm build command and it was like, now it shows, hey, using Webpack 4 because you haven't flagged this flag. And I want to, so I'm going to, because newer is better. We're going to go over the list for a second here of why. And also I know people are going to say, oh, newer isn't always better. That's true. But I'm half joking. I like to just stay bleeding edge with this code. You know, I feel like you get the most interesting stuff that way. But here's some of the things you get. Improved disk caching. That sounds nice. Fast refresh, long-term caching of assets. Improved tree shaking. That could be useful. Some of these I don't care about, like build stuff. It's like, whatever. If it takes a few seconds, no big deal. This looks interesting. Support for assets using new URL. This we'll get into with my drag drop, and I was kind of researching this. I've got a command that I've been using where it's like I convert it to like an int array and then a blob and then a URL. I'd like to shave that down if I could, but I'm not sure if I can. So we'll experiment a little bit this episode, and if I get lucky, great. But if not, we can refactor it because I have a way where it works. So anyways, you get some cool stuff there. None of these seem to be relevant. I don't use any of this stuff, so I don't have to worry about any changes there. So let's try it. And we'll see in a second here, if I recall correctly, that it does not work. So I've done Webpack 5, and now if we do npm build, it does not work, I believe. Especially if you do the command wrong. npm run build. I think yarn, you can do yarn build, so another reason to go to yarn. You see now it says using Webpack 5 reason, it's enabled. I guess I could have ran it without to show you that it says that message now. Maybe a next 1.0. Okay, so we got an error. And the error is it's complaining about the metadata folder in my package import. And it's probably a legit complaint. Because if I go here, I think this is okay to do this where I'm destructing the JSON as I import it. But I think I'm kind of pushing the line there, and it's not necessary to do that. Because I think, yeah, it's not ideal. I think usually the exported stuff you do this for, but doing it with JSON, I mean, I think Webpack could handle it, but Webpack 5's like, don't do that. So I'm fine with that. Basically what I'll just do here is I'll destruct it here. Oops, I opened that randomly. So I'm just going to name it package JSON, very original, and I'll import it as package JSON. And essentially that's the only change I did. So now if I try to build, I think it builds now. And then we're on Webpack 5 and we have perhaps some advantages. I don't know. If nothing else, we're on the newest stuff, which is always cool. There, it built. So that's an accomplishment. So now we've upgraded to Webpack 5 by adding the flag and fixing this. And why did public change? What changed here? Oh, gross. So I have some kind of empty folder from some messing around I was trying to do to get more things working here. Yeah, I shouldn't have a libs folder yet. Spoiler alert. Jeez. There we go. That was an empty folder, but when it ran build, it ran the build fs command, and it tried to change this file system file that I made in a previous episode. So if we run npm run build again, it shouldn't mess with that file. Shouldn't change it. And anyways, these are the only two changes we wanted. The fix, the improvement we'll call it, and that. There we go. No change this time. Cool, upgraded. Where next? So Browserlist. Yeah, so I don't support IE 11. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I did some research into IE 11 support and why it wasn't working. And it's basically not working because of some of my modules not being transpiled properly. But at the same time, I don't care to support it right now. So if we go into Next.js, I don't know how much of difference it makes, but I can specify a browser list and specify exactly what I want to support and not support here in my package JSON file. So I'm just going to do exactly that, basically, as I understand it. So let me go back into the code here. And actually, wait, sorry, let me go back to that link for a second. I think they say here, you can visualize what browser's here, and then here they tell you to do it like this. So that's how we're going to do it. And I'm just going to do it in the console here. So if I run this command, that example seems to be invalid. Nice. What if I just do this? Okay. What if I do defaults? Because I know that was part of what I wanted to do. There we go. So that's the result we get, where it shows those are the default browsers. So basically what I wanted to do, so you see IE11's in the list of defaults, is I want to have a browser list where it's defaults and not IE11. If I do that, what did that get us? Maybe I should say not IE11? Why is that? Oh, okay, let me try this. And not IE11, all one word. No. What am I doing wrong there? I might have to look at my notes. Yeah, let's go look at my notes for what I did in the end. Browser list. What? Did I not change it? No, I definitely changed it. So where would it have been in the package file? There it is here. Oh yeah, I must have searched for it wrong. Not IE11. That's exactly what I wrote. Let me just copy this first part. Maybe the first part doesn't work without a little bit more. Let's try this again. Huh. Okay, unknown browser query 11. Maybe you're using old browser list or made typo. So it doesn't like the way I queried there. But another piece I wanted to add anyways was this supports ES6 that I found. So let's use the whole thing and then see if it works, because it was working for me earlier. Huh. That's wonky. Well, let's dig in a little bit deeper, but I swear that worked earlier. That's weird. So this thing's complaining that like their website's down or something like that. They're making it not helpful for me to find the information I want anyways. Defaults not, oh, maybe capitalized? Why was it lowercase in my example then? Huh. Let's try that then. Let's try capitalized. Let's try capitalized for ES6 too, I guess, if it's going to be all silly. Ah, man, that made no difference. I wonder, what if I do like that? No, I don't want an array. Ugh, that's frustrating. It worked. Well, maybe we'll just come back to this another day. I mean, defaults is good for now, but I don't want IE. And the rules are kind of a little complex too at the same time. Oh, ES6 modules. Did this like change yesterday or something? Honestly, I did it change? Like that'd be weird if it changed like yesterday, the syntax. That just wouldn't even make sense. But I swear it wasn't that. I don't know, whatever. So let's try that then. So ES6 modules. So let's go back to the code again and add the word lowercase ES6 dash module. But no, I know that's not correct. So yeah, that didn't work. Good. Good. Because I know there's a way to do, here it is. Is this it? A list of all available features can be found here. So you see there is just an ES6 one right here. Huh. So that's kind of weird. It seems like it used to work, but now it doesn't. What if I try one of these? Let me just try copying some examples, because it's funny that like even the first example I tried didn't work. That was on the website. Yeah, how can that be? What? Nothing? Maybe this just isn't working for me. If that's the case, I'm not gonna, let's skip this one for now. Let me move this to another day. I don't even think it helped that much. That was just me messing around. We'll put that in the next stream, specify browser list. Let's not get down a rabbit hole with that, waste time. So let's move on to, what did this do? This made some weird files. Oh, okay. Nice. Maybe the piping command? I don't care. Gone. Remove height to maintain aspect ratio. Yeah, this is something I noticed with the drag and drop thing that we'll get into, is that the icon's size was kind of wrong. I should just set width or height. And then let the aspect ratios do their thing kind of, because it was stretching my images when I would use the image as the icon, and it's just not necessary. So let's just fix that now, because it's already a flaw, even though we don't really have a good test case for it at the moment. So in the file entry here, yeah, let's just not have a height. Let's just have the width. So 48 pixels wide, and then whatever the height is, auto height, you know? That works. That was working in my test. You see, I just saved that. It didn't mess up the icon there, so we didn't need to specify height. I'll even use this exact wording. Remove height to maintain aspect ratio. Let's just say that. Icon aspect ratio. Maintain, yeah, nice. Double check my change, make sure I didn't sneak in something there. Cool. So this is just a minor one. This is silly, but I was trying to figure out the exact transition speed for some of the components, like Windows, stuff that Windows was doing. And it seemed like it wasn't quite 300 milliseconds. It felt like a little shorter than that. I couldn't really measure perfectly, but I've decided 250 feels a bit more round to me. So I'm just gonna, whenever there's an opportunity to use 0.3 seconds, I'm gonna use 0.25. Pretty subtle, pretty silly, but I'm gonna do it for the wave speed too, just for everything. We're just gonna be a 250 millisecond app. Is there any 300s to find? No. Cool. So that one's silly, but it's not even gonna be noticeable really. The waves do look a little slower, but it's subtle. Prefer 250 to 300 for transitions. We'll do more of those later, and that's why I've kind of noted it that, because I looked at a lot of the animations for opening a window and how it opens up, how it closes, how it minimizes, and it takes about 250 milliseconds to do its full transitions. Typically, it seems. Could be 300, but it didn't seem like it was. I haven't gone millisecond by millisecond yet. So refactor file info state. Right, this is trickier. This is from the deep source. If you guys remember, I have that tool for scanning my code to see if it finds any like code smells or whatever. And it had an issue with get shortcut. And it got me thinking about, in general, an issue I have with get shortcut, I guess. Let's close these. Oh, let me just readjust myself here. So get shortcut, basically it was complaining that this is a promise and I don't have any kind of catch. I don't have any, what if it doesn't get the shortcut kind of thing. So I was thinking, okay, I could catch here and then I could do some kind of default. And then I was thinking, well, what would the default be? It'd probably be the same thing as the else's here. So what's this else thing doing? It's supposed to be getting by file extension. So that's what we'll do here is get info by file extension. We're going to make a function called that. And it's already got the access to the extension here. Basically, I just want to set the icon and the PID. And this is going to require a few little refactors here. So I've decided that the else case in general should also try to set an icon with the same kind of logic. So we're going to have also another function called get icon by file extension. We haven't made that yet. And then also I've decided I don't like these multiple setters when possible. I'm going to try to remove these. I don't know if I have them anywhere else, but next time I see one, maybe someone can message in the chat or I'll notice it. And we're trying to get rid of these. So I'm going to just go to one state. And it's going to be the file info state, I guess. Yeah, I mean, that makes way better sense anyways. So we don't need these. And we'll just have one thing here called the info. And we'll have a set info. And again, we'll use state. Now we know the type already. But it'll start out null. Like so. There we go. And now I'll just do that in these cases here. So now some of these won't even need to be functions anymore. Or so, yeah, in a way they don't. Like rather than having these brackets here, I can just directly call this. And I want to go icon like so and PID like so, I believe. Now there's a case for not doing null here and actually specifying the blank ones. Do I want to though? That's debatable. I think I do because it's going to try to destruct this, so we wouldn't want this to be null. I think this should always be something, and we'll just use some defaults here. Same as the use states had. They had empty. Info and PID. There we go. That fits. Why is it complaining here? One step at a time. I don't know what it's complaining about there, but one step at a time. Yeah, what is it? One step at a time. Let's finish changing this here. So we set these. Those would be like, what was icon? Icon's icon file. Oh, this is another thing I was going to do. Let's just change this. So icon file becomes icon. URL becomes PID in this case. And then for set info, I'll just do that. I'll just dump icon PID like that. So that's a little more agile, as no one says. And then I can move the then down here. And like I said, we have the catch. Oops, don't click that. We have the catch here. And I can just put like there, I guess. That looks nice. I don't, missing a bracket, I guess. There we go. So that part's pretty clean. And now the logic for that one is here. So let's do this one next. Set info, icon, and PID again. And they're going to be these functions here. One of them exists, one of them will make. There we go. And I won't worry about the formatting here, although for the most part it's not so bad. But when I press save, Prettier is going to clean it up. So we'll call this function in an else type scenario. And then one more set info we got to do here. I don't know if this is more performant doing just one set. I feel like it probably would be. But I also just prefer it, I think. I also get a chance to use my type that I made. And we'll just return info here. Okay, so if I press save there, so what's it complaining about now? This function I'm going to pretend import from here until it exists. Yeah. So now what's left? What's this? It's not assignable to parameter file info. What? What did I do here? Did I do something wrong? I'm missing what's so bad about this. Object literal may only specify known properties and info does not exist in type. Why is file info not being used correctly here? Let's close this for a second and just reopen it and see if that helps in any way. Nope, something's dead wrong. Let's make this function one step at a time again. So we'll move over to file functions here, and it's going to be just like this one for now. Actually, we'll probably add to it very quickly, to be honest. So it actually won't be like this one. But let's copy this piece first. It gets passed in the extension, and we're going to use this extension right away, and we're going to have an unknown icon. We won't do anything for the PID right now. We don't have any until we have an app that can run other things. This is not necessary, but the icon we can use now to show an unknown icon. So we'll use a switch in this case, where we look at extension. And we're just going to deal with the default case right now, which is every case, because we don't we don't know any of them right now. I guess for shortcut we know. Did I do that logic here? I guess I'm doing that logic here. Maybe I could have just moved. Because maybe if I'm doing this, it's like already. Well, we'll think about that for a refactor another day. That maybe I could put the URL in here and do get shortcut here in the file function. I mean, that would make more sense because get shortcuts here. But that's for another day. I haven't thought how to do that just yet. For now, let's just focus on this default, which is going to be an icons folder I'm going to make, and I'm going to call it unknown.ico. Cool. So in pretty much every case, it's going to try to get this unknown icon. So that fixed that. So then why was this complaining? I'm so confused why this is complaining or why it's saying, what? Is this not exactly what it's supposed to be doing? I'm really confused by this. It's frustrating. Maybe I should, yeah, I don't know. Let's look at the code what I had before. Probably I had the exact same thing, but maybe not. Maybe not. Let's look for that little piece that I wrote. I don't have that piece. Or is file search just being junk today? There. Okay, my code looks very similar to that, if not exactly the same. Let me just bring that in here. I've added URL in that one, but let me just remove URL. And now it works? What was different? Oh, duh. My God, I'm so blind. So I put info, but it's icon. Obviously, it's icon. This is the info. Some of the obvious stuff right in front of your eyes kind of things that you miss. Anyway, moving on. So what have we done here? Let's take a peek at what we've done already. So yeah, we've just transitioned the icon and PID to their own little info state. We've added we've created this function getInfo by file extension, so we can use it if the shortcut fails, or if it's not a shortcut and it's not an image and we're just trying to figure out what it is. So basically, if get shortcut fails, go back to trying to figure out what it is. And there might be a more elegant way to write this, but I'm pretty happy with this, and it also catches that failure here. So as far as catching it, it's actually not going to catch it because we're not throwing it yet. So we need to go do that as well here in get shortcut. We have a promise, but we're not doing any kind of rejecting. So let's do a reject here. So we'll check if the error exists. Then you want to reject, and we'll pass along the error, which we will not use. Otherwise, do the other stuff. There we go. That should clean up that logic for the most part. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So what does that get us? That gets us something. So now let's try to, actually let's make the icon now. So we go into public and we'll make the icons folder. Now, as far as getting the icon, this is where we get into the gray area of me wanting to do it exactly like Windows is doing it. So, I mean, I can get the icon, you know, I can get the icon. So I'm just going to do that. So there's this cool tool called this guy Nursoft makes tons of useful tools. One of them being icon extract. So I'm just going to download icon extract. I actually already have it, so I'll just run it. Now I don't have a thing to share to show you guys it working, unfortunately. I guess I could. Let me do that. Let me just resize this window to be the entire, basically the exact same width as the browser. And I'll add it here as another possible window so you guys can see it. Where is it here? Window capture. And we'll call it icon extract. That's it right there, yeah. Okay, so that should not be in front of me. There we go, I'm still here. Hey guys. So I think this is not quite the full size, or maybe it needs some adjusting. Oh, okay, it just did a weird way that it shares it. I don't care. Just this so you guys can see, that's what it looks like. So this is opening shell32.dll to see all the icons, and you can see the first icon here. This one here is essentially the icon for unknown files. So I'm just going to take that icon and I'm going to remove anything that's not the 48 by 48 pixel version, because that's the maximum that I show icons at. And I'm not going to even use the lower ones. I'm just going to let it resize the 48 by 48 one. So there's only, it just makes the icon smaller. Then it stays at like 9 kilobytes or something like that. So I'm going to delete this window. There we go. And so yeah, so I did that. I'm going to jump back into the code here. So I'll save that icon to my desktop. I have another tool here. Let me just actually go back to the browser and show you one other little handy tool I found. This one's just something I just found recently. Where'd my browser go? There it is. This is Junior Icon Editor. I think back in the day, like 15, 20 years ago, I had something for editing icons at this pixel level, and this is just another one very similar to it. It's free. And as you can see here, this little piece right here, when you open it, you can see the different sizes. I won't share it because it'll only take a second, but I'm going to open that app basically and just remove the icon. Oops. Remove the ones that aren't the size that I care about. So I'm just doing that right now. I'll just share it. I got to share it, right? What am I talking about? Not sharing something. Let's do another window capture here. Call it the icon editor. So, oh, there we go. There it is right there. So there I'm in the icon editor now, so you guys can see it. Yeah, cool. So there's the 256 byte one, or pixel one, sorry. 64 pixel one. So 48 is the one I want to keep at 32 BPP. So I'm just going to delete all the other ones because it just makes the icon smaller, and I'd rather it be smaller and be a shorter download and then let the browser kind of do the resizing because it actually doesn't look so bad. So that's what I want for the icon right now. And I'll just save that. Close this. Okay, so I closed it there. What happened? Oh yeah, cool. The window capture just disappears. I'm happy with that. Let me delete that in OBS so it doesn't go all wonky. So let's go into the code here now. So I have my icon. I'm going to name it unknown. And we'll just open up this folder here. And I'll paste it in. There we go. So if you guys see in my icons, I have it there. I click it, shows it. Cool. So now I got that icon. So what's the next step to show it? I think if I go into my desktop and I make another file, let's call it madeup.txt or whatever. So now we have that made up file. So now I just have to run the build command again to make the file system update with that new file. And now if I refresh, that should show up on my desktop. There we go. So you see, we got a fake file on my desktop there, and it's got the unknown file icon, just like Windows. So that will be the default for any file icons based on extension that I don't make icons for. So cool. So what have we done? So I'm going to delete this file now, by the way. Don't need that anymore. That was just for an example. So the things I do need, this will be reset or no? Okay, no, yeah, that should be updated because now there's the icon file itself is there. We updated the use file info, like we've already discussed. Got the unknown icon, and we now reject if there's any kind of error, and we got our unknown there. Cool, and we can add to this. Like we're gonna add another icon for the ISO images and the .img extension, which is the same icon. Nice, and we'll use that for our x86 emulator. A lot of these things I'm doing are to set up using this emulator. So let's save that. Refactor file info state and added fallback. Yes. I'm going to commit these. Actually, I'm at the end of this list anyways. So I'm going to do my push now of all the little refactors that I did. Those are dumped to the redo branch now. And now I've got some Windows stuff, and I think I'm going to do these ahead of time just so that we have them. I think. Yeah, I think I will. So I got one for disabling maximize, and I got one for doing the auto resize. And I'm going to look at what I have in my code here for maximize, just to remember that one. I think disabling maximize is mixed in with no, it's not. When I'm talking about disabling maximize, yeah, it's when are the scenarios where I want to disable it? Oh man, there's so many. Let's do the auto resizing first, because then things will make more sense, I think. So let's just start at the top with my auto resizing changes here. So yeah, we need to go to the window. Let's go back to the code here. Open up our resizable draggable window. And we want here, under the size setting, if auto sizing is set, then when we close the window, this is the use effect for when the window closes, we don't want to update the size with whatever the size happens to be right then. We just want to go back to defaults. So where are the defaults again? I know the constant for it, it's this. I have it somewhere else, so there we go. So we'll import this piece here, and the auto sizing is going to come from the process. It's going to be part of the process now. So if we're auto sizing, then yeah, we just skip saving that. The next little piece is in the title bar, I believe. Yes, the maximize button. So when we're auto sizing, we don't want to have the maximize button. So we'll just set the disabled state based on if auto sizing is set, and we'll pull that in as well in with the process. That part's simple enough. And then in the window component itself, I think there's a little bit more. No, that's another piece. Let me just look in my references here for the next little piece of auto sizing, because there's quite a few places. So at the resize level, we need to do it as well. Let's go into our hooks. In the next episode, I want to refactor some of the directory structure here. I think the hooks should be closer to where they're used, which makes sense, but I've got it all wonky here. So let's see, use resizable. So here we also need auto resizing. Where am I using that? Oh, okay, we need to pass it in here? Really? Is that how I'm passing it in? I mean, that makes sense because I'm not doing use processes here. I'm not asking about the process. I could. No, wait, could I? No, I don't have ID. So okay, it's fair to pass it in here. The reason I'm passing it in here is the resizing should happen here. So we're going to need a use effect. because this is where the resizing occurs anyways, I think. No, but this is where, if we're doing a use resizable, this is where height and width are saved. This is where we know about size. Yeah, we have it here. Yeah, because size, the way we're going to do auto sizing is the app is going to be able to set the size that is in the final, like when you close the window here and you set window states for the session, we're going to set that while the window's still running. And when that changes, size will change here, which is passed in to use resizable. If we look, yeah, you see size, the previous size is passed in. Oh yeah, but previous size comes from the window state. So previous size is actually not an ideal wording, perhaps. It's in this case not the previous size, it's the new size. Maybe we should call it the state size. State position and the state size. Because yeah, in a non-auto resizing window, that won't change until the window's closed. So when it's reopened, that does make sense to always call it previous. But now if this can change on the fly, it's really just it's just based on the session. So we'll call it the state position and the state size. Is that a good idea? Maybe the session position. Session position and session size? No, I don't like that either. Window state. What if we, yeah, state position. Window state position? Let's say state position. Let's not overthink it. State position, state size. So that fits there. What's it complaining about here? Let's ignore that for now and figure out in a minute why it's complaining about that, because I didn't notice that earlier. Maybe it's something to do with what I've done here. Oh yeah, because I've added auto sizing, right? Let's just go in there and pass it then. So we know we need auto sizing here. It's coming from, am I using it there? Oh yeah. Okay, that's where to get it from, because I have ID here. So with ID, I'm going to get auto sizing, which I'll pass in here. And I have to import use processes too then. So back to finishing this auto sizing. So basically when size changes, and based on auto sizing, if auto sizing is on, then we gotta update the size to whatever the new state size is. There we go. So that works on the use resizable front. And on this side too, I think we're passing things in right, and we've renamed the variables to something a little more sensible as well. Still don't have auto resizing yet in the session, or in processes, sorry. There's another piece I wanted to add to this, I think. Yes, the enable resizing. We don't want to enable resizing if it's, so enable resizing if it's not maximized and it's not auto resizing. Makes sense? Maybe I should just say one of those. If it's enable resizing, well, they're both valid. I'm not going to overthink my booleans at this point. I mean, what does that save me? Nothing. Overthinking your booleans, that's a rookie mistake. So now we just have to add it to the process here. So let's go into the process. Where is that? I don't even know. It's in the well, let's go to the process directory first. Yeah, oh, that's actually where it is. Nice, that's a good place for it. So in the process directory, we will now say the process can also have auto resizing optionally. And it's a boolean. It's a boolean, guys. And so yeah, currently we won't use it, but in the when we make our other app, we are going to say that that app is auto resizing. So it's going to have these characteristics that we're building in. I think we built them in actually. We don't have any cool way to really check out the dynamic part, but we can check out a piece of it here. Let's check out the piece by saying that hello world is auto resizing. So we save that, and now we refresh this. We should lose that icon probably too. Yeah, so if we open hello world, so I can't resize, so that partly worked. What about maximize? Yeah, maximize doesn't work either. So that's cool. So I've half got maximize done, but it doesn't look very disabled. So where did I do that? In the title bar I did that, right. So I set it disabled here, but I need to do a little bit more. I think I'm trying to remember where I have in the stylings. I messed with the stylings a bit. I can hear a million geese outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. So where are the stylings for this? The minimize buttons, title bar. So the title bar styling is styled title bar. There we go. So let's jump to it here now that I found it in my notes. Styles, components, window, styled title bar. Yeah, I might have to reorganize this. It feels a bit all over the place, but at the same time, I don't know if it is. So basically, I'm just going to add in some code here. So we got our hover state. Really? How did I do this before? This looks wrong the way I've done it here. Oh, okay. No, it's not. So on the button, if it's disabled, we need to do a different styling. So we've got the disabled part working now. That's why clicking it didn't work, but it's still got a hover effect. So there's two things we need to do. First off, we want to change the color of the button slightly. We want it to be more gray. Now I've looked into this a bit and it looked like to me it was something like a 50-50-50 kind of thing. Actually, it was weird because the only place I could find a disabled maximize was when the bar was inverted and it was white. And in that case, the gray was like 205 by 205, 205 or something. But that looked terrible on a black one. It was almost invisible. So the inverse of that I felt was like, if instead of taking 255 and minusing 50, why don't we just do 50 only? I don't know about the logic. I need to find a window with a black title bar and a disabled maximize window, button, sorry. But I haven't found that, So let's set the color first and let's see if that changed. Yeah, that changed. So you see the window maximize is now like a gray. So now we just have to disable that hover effect. We'll just inherit the background color of what it was before it was getting changed, and that should do it. There we go. No, that didn't do it. Why didn't that do it? That's weird. In my previous code, that worked. Or no, I have this spelt wrong. Where's the error that tells me that this is inherit is wrong? Inherit. There we go. Oh, now it's blue. So that was the error, the color? Where was my syntax warning? There we go. Now hover. You see it doesn't work for maximize. That's the effect I wanted. So this is an auto resized window. So like, let's say in this app, I could have a button that would tell the window to resize. Or in this case, the emulator is going to automatically send that command when we have it. So let's change our hello world to not be auto resizing. Otherwise, I think we're good with the settings here, or our changes. So we've added auto resizing. And this is so that when I close it, that it goes back to default always. I prefer that functionality. I've added to disable the maximize. We've added the auto resizing when the size changes. We pass it down. We've also renamed the variables to not be necessarily focused on being previous. Done the styling from disabled button, and we've added this to the process. Cool. Maybe it's time to do a build now too to make sure we haven't broken things, because typically it's around this time that I've broken something. We'll do a quick npm run build, and I'm just going to commit what I have anyways though, with the assumption I didn't break it. So what did we do here? We allowed disabling maximize. Did we do both things? I think we did. And app and auto resize window. Allow disabling maximize and auto resize window. Okay, so that's a pretty useful feature. We're gonna need that. Let's and the build worked, by the way, as you guys saw or did not see maybe. So now we get into the drag and drop feature. This is a tricky one. This is interesting. This one, I'm gonna have to try to remember how I even remembered this. Let's just go through some fundamentals that I've learned or not learned about it, but played around with. So one of the first things is how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna use the onDrop method that's already built into React and its synthetic events. I'm gonna apply that to the, let's just jump right to it a little bit, to the file manager, which makes sense, I think. So we have our file manager here, and close this, get this out of the way. So the styled file manager right here, we can do an on-drop event right here, basically. So if something's dropped there, it will handle it right there. And another thing that I've noticed with this synthetic event is that the only way to make it trigger properly is to also have a on-drag enter as well. And to halt that, to not allow it to do anything based on that. I mean, maybe you could allow it, but I just halt it because I don't care about it. But if you don't have that, the dropping doesn't work. And maybe we'll test that theory. Let me just find it here. Oh, is it on drag enter or is it on drag something else? It's on drag over. At least that's in my code what I've done here. So let's just attempt that. So yeah, you see on drag over here. And I don't know if they talk about, there's no mention of needing that, but let's go back to the code. And I'm just going to comment that out and say we don't need it for a second here. And let's just test this out. So let's say that's whatever, console log.x. So that essentially in theory could do something. So if we go back to the browser, let's open my thing in a bigger window here. So I'm going to open up the console and I'm going to drop something in. Oh, so that didn't work. That opened my show notes. So that just didn't work basically. It didn't properly capture it. Let's try adding the on drag over piece. I don't think I even got anything in the console log. Yeah. Did I? Let's see. Because it didn't, did it change the window? No, so it doesn't change the window. So the tab's still open, but nothing happened in the console. So it didn't even detect it. But if we add the on drag over, let's have the same function here. Now if I drag something over, oh sorry, I didn't show you guys the code there. I just added the on drag over piece to the function. So now when I drag something and oh, you see right away it's already popping stuff in the console. And if I let go, it opens because it didn't do prevent default. It didn't stop doing that, but I can make it not do that. But now you see the console is doing stuff. Did the on drop ever occur? Interesting. I still didn't get on drop. Let's try the halting of the event. And let's see how far that gets us. What if we do that here? X dot, what is it called? Let's just scroll here and see what it, prevent default. I think that's part of it. What if we do prevent default there? And then, so let's refresh this again. Go back into the browser, do a drag and drop. That's not very preventing of default. What if we do the same code change on the drag over as well? So we add the code change there. Go back to the browser, do another refresh for the heck of it. So I drag over and I drop. There we go. And now we got the on drop. Cool. Now just to test again, let's remove that drag. Let's comment this out, drag over again, and let's just see if it still works. I'm thinking it won't. So now when I refresh this again, now when I drop something, no, you see, it just doesn't work. So I don't know, I'm not going to worry about the why of that for now, but so there was one other piece I think that we need to do as well with this code. Let me see if I can find it in here. There's like another stopping command we need to do, stop propagation. I think that's going to be relevant at some point. I don't know if I have a note to it. Yes, stop propagation. It's part of this drag event, actually. Let's just open up the drag event and see where it talks about it. Yeah, so we're going to use the drag event and we're going to get this data transfer piece to get what we need. And if we go into the drag event here, I think it talks about how to stop it too. Let's just go to that link I had for stop propagation to explain the gist of that. So yeah, stop propagation method interface prevents further propagation of the current event in the capturing and bubbling phase. So I think that could be useful if, let's say, we had another window, a file manager on top of this, and I try dropping onto the file manager, it might bubble that down and also try to put it on the desktop as well. So we don't want that. So we're going to do that first, I think. Or maybe we'll prevent default first. That makes sense. So right away we'll prevent default and we'll stop propagation, and we need to do that in both places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a command for that, a function, sorry, called halt event. There we go. And we'll pass the event in there as a drag event, was it? Let's hover over this. Yeah, drag event handler. Okay, and what's this? This is the drag event, okay. So we'll call it event. And we'll copy these two pieces here. There we go. And it doesn't return anything. So now we can just pass this directly like that. And for here, we'll run this here. And then we'll do kind of what we want to do. And let me just go to my example again here. I got a lot of code for doing this, so you'll have to bear with me as I jump around slightly from time to time. I should say halt drag event too, because it's not just any event. I mean, it kind of is, but the stop propagation thing is I think specific to drag events, so let's just specify that there. And right away, I wanted to turn this into a hook actually, so let's just do that too. Call it use file drop. And I don't think, do we need to pass anything to it? Yeah, we need the directory. Directory as a string. And as far as what it returns, I think we're gonna have to return some stuff. Yeah, we're gonna return those two functions, the onDragOver and onDrop. So we'll call that the file drop type. And I've already got this part written out. I'm just gonna copy what I have here. There we go. So same thing, onDragOver, onDrop, and it's these event functions with the drag event. Oh, I actually should fix that here. Yeah, this is doing a generic drag event. It should be the React drag event, so that's a good catch right there. And I can also specify that there's an HTML element involved here, even though I don't think that matters for this case, but maybe it does. More specific doesn't hurt. So for our hook here, it's going to return those two things in the end. Return like so. And we're going to move all this to the hook momentarily. I think now is a good time actually. Let me just finish this piece here. So we're going to do the, what do they call that? Prop destruction? Prop spreading. We're going to prop spread it here. So that looks cool, I think. Use file drop directory. Very simplified as to what that's doing. Adding some kind of file dropping abilities to the file manager. And basically then we just move all the logic out of here. Like so. And we're going to put a hook in the hooks for now until we think of a better place. Use file drop.ts. Oh, I already have all that stuff. There we go. And we just got to export it. Like so. And we have our halt drag event. What's it complaining about here? Ah, there we go. Save that and see what else it complains about. Directory is defined but never used. That's true. Well, we've only just begun. So what do we want this function to do? So we have this directory, which is in this case the desktop. It'll be the case that the only time we're using the file manager is for the desktop currently. It's not importing this, so let's just import it old school by typing it. Hooks / use file drop. Nice. There we go. So we're done with this piece. That was simple for the file manager. Now we focus on the logic here. So we need to write when the drop occurs, we need to get the file and write it to the file system. So we'll need access to the file system. So fs from use file system, like so. And the onDrop command, we're going to turn this into a callback, as we turn pretty much everything into callbacks here. Use callback, like so. And what do we need from it? I don't know. There we go. Yeah, what do we need from it? So I'm gonna, again, copy a little bit of what I wrote here. Just the most minor piece, this piece right here. There we go, just get event in there. I actually had it written up here anyways, so. And what's it complaining about? I'm not using event, fair. Yes, we have to pass event into the halt drag event. So that alone will do something actually. So if we console log here, and then we look at that event.data transfer, was it? Yeah, there we go. And we're not using directory yet. We'll console log directory too, just so it doesn't complain. And fs we're not using either. Yeah, fs we're gonna have to use in our callback. That's gonna have to exist. And directory also is gonna be used. So there we go. That's that piece. So let's see what we got already here. Let's go back to the app, refresh it here. And if I drop something in, there we go. So you see there, we got our path and we got the data transfer object and had a file. It says it says 0 length. This is a wonkiness that happens with the inspecting. It's like, it shows nothing, but there was something there. And if we just assume that it's there, it'll actually work okay. So let's just do that. Let's write as if there will be a file there. So what was the next piece? So I helped the event, and then now I want to get this file basically from files. So I'm going to do some destructing here. I'm going to say from there, or if there is no data transfer, we'll just use the object just in case. So the data transfer had the files, and then the first element in the array will be file. We'll call it file. Now this is something with TypeScript. I have it over here. It says, because of the type that this is not an array type or a string type. Use compiler option down level iteration to allow iterating of iterators. Okay, I'm gonna do that because I like it. I like this format, and I don't really know what the cons are for that. So I'm just gonna add this to my rules that we allow down level iteration. So save that, and it should stop complaining about this, I think. Let me close it and open it and see if it stops complaining about that piece. Oh yeah, now it's just complaining about because I'm not using it yet. So now we get into this file reader. Now I don't know how to show you guys what I've learned here because it's just pure luck, you know? Like I don't actually know how I figured out any of this. Let's look at the file reader here. I think I was looking at like dragging, I think it's piece here, yeah. File objects may be obtained from a file list. That's what this thing that I was iterating over is. From input, yeah. From a drag and drop operations data transfer object. So there we go. So that's why I want to get file reader involved here. Let's see if there's any good examples. None at all. Nice. Maybe if I dig further in. So I think the code I wanted to use was onload. So let's do onload here and see what example they have. So they make a new file reader. See, that's the same thing I've got there for destructing the first element from files, calling it file. And then the result here of the e.target is what we use. Interesting. I don't think I was doing that in what I wrote down, but I prefer that method. So let's see, this is interesting here, this read as text file, because there's other ones here. I think I'm doing read as array buffer, but read as data URL is interesting to me. What does that get us? Contents of the specified blob. When the read operation is finished, the ready state contains a data URL representing the file's data as base 64. I don't know if we want to do base 64 encoded URL for something massive that's like 1 gigabyte. I think that's where I was really liking the method that I've used that we'll kind of dig into a little bit. But okay, so we got that. So let's go back to the code and I'll just start writing down kind of what I had. So let's move this console log out down a bit. So we got that reader, the file reader that we need, and it's got to have its onload event. That's what happens after. So the onload happens after this command. Oops. After you go reader dot and you read it some way. So currently I was doing read as array buffer and passing in the file. And then when it loads, you deal with it here. Now I was doing reader dot result, but they're showing here that there can be a callback. Let's take a look at this callback here. What was it, target? Yeah, maybe. Does that say that's correct? Yeah, it's not complaining about that. Let's do a console log of that, target. Let's see what that gets us. We don't need this console log anymore. So if we go back to the browser and we drag a file on, cool. So we got some cool stuff down here. Yeah, we got the file reader. We have this array buffer that's 1766. And if I look at the file is 1,766 bytes. If I look at the property in Windows. So that's the file. So it did find it there. That was in result right there. So let's even destruct that then. So we got here target result. And result is the file. This is an object, sorry. So I actually should do like that. And let's assume it could be empty. Result. There we go. Does that work? Result does not exist on type file reader. Okay, what if I do that? All right, let's let target just be target, and then I'll go, oops, I'll do target.result. I think that works. Why is it complaining? Object is possibly null. So what? All right, there, you happy? There. Okay, so the logic that I wanted to do in here was to write that file. So like I said, we got access to fs, so let's use it here. fs.writeFile. And for writing the file, basically you just have to specify the path is the first element. We're gonna use template literal. So we have the directory, where is it here? Directory, / the file dot name. Simple enough. And the next piece we need, oops, I don't need the bracket there. Next thing is the data. So that is the file. So here's where it gets tricky. So the way I'm doing it right now is kind of wonky, maybe. I'm doing it like this. Buffer from new int array. It'll be target result here. Target.result as array buffer. Do I need to do as array buffer? Probably. Yes. As array buffer. It complains otherwise. There we go. So that's how I'm doing that. And then I also have a callback here that I think I wanted to change. I want to make a note that I need to update the directory. And we're going to get back to that in a second because I think I've found a way to do that in a somewhat clever way. So this doesn't need to be a function anymore. This can just be straight up this command when it's done. There we go. And I don't care what that returns. So as far as this piece here, I don't know how to do this better yet. I think like in a best case scenario, I'd like to be able to just do this, right? So let's just start there and see what happens. But let's keep this in our back pocket. And then we need this callback to update the directory. Other than that, that's pretty much all that I had in the code actually. That's literally it for doing drag and drop. This would write it to a file, write it to the desktop. So the callback we need, basically we need to update files. So this needs to be passed in, I think, into the file drop. Let me see, where's file drop used? Right. So what would I want to pass in? I want this to refresh if something specifically changes. I think we got to look because I actually did this. I actually did this in another redo branch. I got so many redo branches trying to clean things up so that I can explain it to you guys, and I couldn't explain it to myself basically. Let's just see what I did because I'm trying to remember. I found a better way to do it, I think. Okay, get files. Oh, right. So I changed the way use files works, and I actually do prefer that. So let's take a peek at that then. So basically, instead of doing the use files thing here, I'm going to move it up. We got to turn this into a function. Let's start there. Turn this into a function, and then instead of having use files just directly, like if we look at what use files is doing, it's just doing the mapping piece here. So let's just bring that one step back here. And then when files changes, it's going to be easier to just like update that. So from use files, we're going to get files, and we're going to get a get files command that gets an update. And now we'll do use files. It almost makes more sense. I prefer the hooks to look like this often anyways. And the rest of this is fine, actually. I think. Let's just check it out here. Return that. Clean up this wonkiness here. So yeah, use files, I haven't refactored that yet, so it's complaining. So now we need to pass get files into the file drop as well. So use file drop now also gets a get files command to basically get the latest files for that directory, and that's what's going to run here, get files. So I actually I could just pass it like that then. Make that note there. And get files is coming here. And what is it? It is what is that? It's just a void function. You don't need to know what it's doing. It's just going to ask to get the files again from the file system. And that also needs to be part of this. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There we go. So that's a little bit more like how I wanted it. Now we just need to clean up use files again. So now instead of returning this, it's going to return the files and also a get files command. Yeah, it's not going to map through it anymore. Still need to call back. Or do we? No. I don't need the callback anymore. I just need the directory now. The callback is right here. Yeah, I prefer that big time. Yeah, I don't know. The way I had it before, I'm not a huge fan of. So good that I'm changing it. So we don't need no more callback here at all. Just cleans that up. And here, that part's okay, but I think I want get files to be even more simple. So get files needs to change when. Well, let's make the command. Let's make the function first. I'm gonna have to put this behind a use callback probably, but it's basically doing this. This is what it's. This is getting files. Yeah, that's good there, and we can just stop checking FS too. I think. Let's just say that's optional. And when get files changes, that's when we'll change. That's when we'll run the use effect. And we can also run it here. So it's just always going to rerun getting the update. Something's missing from this, I think. Let me save that and see what it looks like. Get files. Maybe not. Oh yeah, I wanted this to be a use callback and specify which dependencies I care about. So I only want this function to change if... Actually, what I like doing here sometimes is just set up this piece, save it, and then I can hover here and see what it suggested I add. So directory and FS, okay, add them, done. That's quick too. So yeah, this is basically the same dependency array that I had in use effect before, but now I've cleaned that up a bit. So when get files changes, run it, and also I'm passing it so I can run it too. And now this is a little different here, what gets returned. Let's call it the files type. And it's the files, which are, what are they again? They're a string array, right? And get files, which is just a straight up dumb callback. There we go. And now we'll say that that's what's getting returned. There we go, that totally cleaned that up. Now let's check here what's wrong here. Oh, okay. I don't need to pass directory here anymore. I passed it in the other area now. So now I just focus on mapping that. That's cleaner. That's the way that that usually should look, I think. Cool. So now the file drop will just run this immediately. So now we need to know if this is working. So, well, we can move on to another step and then figure this out later. But let's first check the app and see how it looks. So I drag something on. There we go. I dragged it on and there it is. So it just created the file. I don't know if the contents are correct yet. To know that, maybe if I double click it, I could read it. Let's try that. Let's just get there when we get there. I mean, I have the notes to this here, so I know that this way has worked, but if I can just dump it direct, I'd prefer to do that. And I'm not 100% sure. This might just be some legacy messed up stuff I was doing for who knows why. Otherwise, there's our file drop command, right? So let's just take this little piece here and actually cut that out. Now this is a one-liner. I like that. We'll bring this over to here, and I'm just going to put this in the comments for now as like, did I need question mark? There we go, question mark. So we discussed these links. Hey, we discussed the drag event, the mouse on drop. We got it working basically. Yeah, it worked. So we had a drag and drop and it created the file. Now we can't read the file yet. We don't know if we can read it because we don't have a thing for that. But soon we're going to have files that can be read by an app that I'm going to make. So let's add the notes here. Where is it? Allow this one here. Add file drag drop ability. So I had to do the down level iteration to iterate over that file list. I added file drop here and moved the hook to be slightly different. There's a complete refactor of the hook kind of. Not too much though. It's still just doing redirectory when get files is possible to work, but it also passes it along to update again. And they use file drop one, which is completely fresh. And I've kind of went through with you guys involving how you have to do these stoppings and how you need drag over. We halt it right away. We handle the drop event here. And it worked. Now we don't know if this piece is giving us the right results in the data. When we get to the fs.read file, then we'll know. Maybe I could just do that. There's got to be a way. Let's try to do that here, actually, because I'm interested. I'm interested to know if my code works. Kind of weird, hey? Weird thing to be interested about. Let's just see if we can do that in the callback here. So this is after it's been written. So we're gonna do the get files, but before we do that, we're gonna do a read of the file. And let's see if I can take a look at it. Read file, and then the callback is the file, I guess. Or no, it's error, and then the file. So let's console log what the file looks like and see if that looks anything like what I would have hoped it would look like. So when I'm doing my testing, once I start doing drag and drop of stuff, I go into application and I clear site data often because that clears the files until we have delete functionality. So let's try again. Let me go to the console so we can see. So I drag it on and I drop it. Oh yeah, that doesn't look right. So you see the file here is like this. I mean, maybe that is right. Buffer, it says 0 though. Yeah, what do I do with that? That looks not correct. That looks like it didn't write it, doesn't it? So let's go into the code and let's try to let's do my thing first, just quick, and just see if that just works. Where was that? Here. So instead of target results, it's going to be this. So if I try that, if I clear the files again, refresh. So now when I drop the file, there we go. Oh man, sorry guys, I didn't switch to the thing. So I dropped the file now, and now you see here in the console, that's a full-size looking file. So can we trim down at all what I've written here? Do we need to do buffer from? Maybe we can just do this piece. Maybe. Let's try that. Back to the browser. Clear it again. Refresh again. So console again. Drag. Maybe. 1833, is that the new size of it? Yeah, that is the correct size. Oh wait, but they're all zeros, you see that? Interesting. But they weren't zeros when I did it the other way, hey? When it was a buffer from. And I need this too, right? Because it can be undefined. Yeah, it hates that too, because it can be undefined. But when I do that, so this is the trial and error without actually the understanding of like why, you know? So I drag again, there we go. So now we get the right size and it all has the right bytes. So now I think we have a legit file. So we did need the code the way I had it, I guess. So now we can clean this piece up at least. We don't need that. That was just for debugging. But this piece we need. We need to make a buffer. We take the result, convert it to this int array, and then turn that into a buffer to be read by the writing command. Now, how did I figure that out? You guys just saw. I just messed around with commands until it gave me a result that looked correct. So that's pretty cool. I think we got it now. So let's commit that. We needed this, and that's what it's called. I think I've already copied that in already. No, I hadn't. Cool. So commit that. So now we have drag drop support. That's pretty cool. So now as far as allow running multiple windows from same app, this is something that's only possible once we pass the URL of the file, which we didn't. The hello world was only a shortcut to an app. Whereas the thing I've dragged into the desktop now, this file, this markdown document in this case of the show notes, that's like a file that has a URL, but not an app. It doesn't have a PID because there's no process associated with that file type. So what we need is the ability to pass a URL to the app so that the app can do stuff with it. So this gets deep into a bunch of little refactors that I did. A bunch of refactors. Let me just try to find... Actually, it's not that many. Let's just go right to where it would begin, in fact. Close all this stuff. So the file entry, the shortcut or whatever on the desktop, let's start there. So files, the file entry. So the file entry would also need to get a URL. So when it gets the path, what's the path again? What is the path? That's when FS reads each thing and it sees the path to make the shortcut. Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so the URL and path would probably end up being the same in those cases, but the PID would be whatever it can figure out from the extension. And then we take that URL and we pass it into the open command. So when we say open process, we also say what, if there was a URL, we pass that along too. Elemental PQRSTU. So, okay, that part's cool. That part was easy. Let me just see where else is the next piece, because I have it in a bunch of tiny little places. So file info is the next piece, which is the hook where we just updated. So now we also want URL to be a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the file entry. And this kind of fits with how a shortcut works, where it has like app and URL, and sometimes it's just app. But I didn't have that idea until right now, that concept. So when it's from file extension, it's going to be the path always, right? Yeah, that's correct. But in this case, when it's a shortcut now, I want to change this. So this is where do we get into, I don't have that note, but let's jump into the browser here and go back into that URL file type. Go back to this page here, the unofficial guide. And I noticed that, so I've been using URL for my shortcut, but there's also another thing called base URL, extended URL format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call base URL the app, basically URL. So in the case of our hello world shortcut here, you see hello world is the app. So now base URL, I'm going to call it base URL. That is the app. So if hello world had the ability to run apps, you could have like URL equals whatever .markdown, you know, and let's say it can read markdown files. So that would be the example. So URL will be URL and base URL is like the PID, the app. So now we're going to extract another piece from this base URL, and alphabetically, I think this actually should be rearranged anyways. That should be there. And base URL is now going to be the PID, and URL is going to be the URL, which is a little confusing. But that works good, yeah. So base URL becomes PID, and we need to put them here. That's probably going to move it onto a second line, sorry. There we go. Formatted it onto this line. And yeah, base URL doesn't exist yet. We'll add that in a second. So we've done it for the shortcut here. And for image extension, it's also going to be the URL. Yeah. Images are also going to be opened by the same thing there. That'll be the same. I think that does that. So now URL is properly set. If it's a file extension, then base it on the file. If it's a shortcut, get it from the shortcut. If it's an image, also base it on the file. Okay, so let's move on to get shortcut here and add base URL there, that logic. So we got base URL here. Again, let's fix the alphabetization. I don't know if that's a word. Probably it is, yeah, sounds right. And where is this used here? I got this alphabetically incorrect everywhere. I guess because that's the order that they're on within the shortcut. So base URL also is going to start blank. Okay, so yeah, that was simple enough. Just also get base URL. And what am I doing with it here? Okay, no, yeah, that's good. That's just for setting the defaults, I think. Yeah, I think so. So that's actually all that's really required there. So where's the next piece of the puzzle? Yeah, we got to figure it out here. We got to figure it out there. Here is the next piece when you open it. So we actually need to do something with the URL. That is in the process context, I think. Let's see here. Use process context. Yeah, here I'm using open. Here I'm calling open, but I have to just once again pass it along. Just keep passing it along here. So we'll set it in the type that it's a string. And we'll pass it here when it's called. And we'll pass it into open process. And that's where we're gonna And here in open process is where we're going to kind of finish off this. Let me just find where I got that, because I have a good example of it. I think it's way at the bottom of my code here. Yeah, here it is. So we're going to turn this into a function. Going to return the same, it was already a function, but we're going to turn it into a function that I can work with in this way. So basically to do that, what do we need to do? We need to also here pass URL. So URL as a string. We need to pass in URL here. So actually to do what I just did there, we did not need to break this out into a function, but there's another piece to this puzzle that I want to do. And this is also now prop spread into there. And now it's saying URL is not part of the process. Let's get to that as well, which we know is in the process directory now. So there we go. That is also optional because it can just be an app, but URL can be assigned. So we'll add that there to the process. So the reason I made this into a function is I also need to make a new variable that is the new ID, because like I was saying earlier, the ability to open multiple apps is going to mean that the process ID is going to have to be based on the ID and the URL. And I don't see any issues with this at the moment. So if a URL is passed in, then it goes process ID underscore URL. Otherwise, we're just going to use the process ID. And now that becomes the process ID here. Now, when it's referring to process directory, we do use the process ID. But when we're checking if the process already exists or if we're making it, we use the new ID that can possibly also contain the URL. But from the directory, it's just the process ID. So that's basically that piece as well. I think that might do it. Let's run a build and just see if I missed anything. But I think, yeah, so now in the case of, I'm just trying to think where we can use this. Let's say for Hello World, let's try to use this. So let's go to our Hello World app just to test this out. And we'll make it a little more complicated than that. So we have the access to ID here within our app. And that means we have access to the process information. Use processes. This is wrong. Processes, and in the object we get the ID, and then from there we get the URL, right? And then I can print the URL into my app here. There we go. So if I save that, that looks okay at the moment. And now if I open the Hello World, it did not open, so something's broken. What did I break here? Oh, this is not being returned. There we go. Now let me try to open Hello World. Still not. What? Let me go into the browser and see if I've really legitimately broken it here. Oh, what happened? Oh wait, so when I did a build, I think things broke. Sometimes if you do build when you're running the dev command still, it hates that because it's like, oh man, you just changed a bunch of files on me. So let's try again. Why is it taking so long? Oh, it says a built-in error page? Okay, whatever. So now when I try to open Hello World, so it opens, cool. So you see there it shows nothing after Hello World because there was no URL. But let's say in my let's say I made a process, or let's do it in the shortcut, right? Because that is where I'd want to use it. So in the shortcut here, if we had a URL is whatever.markdown. Now if we go back into the browser, let's do a refresh just in case. Now when we open it, there we go. So we are able to access the URL now. So we can do that for file extensions as well. Or for files, sorry. And we can make some cool shortcuts that way too. So this one's done. This Hello World can be completely undone. That was just for testing. So what are the things that change that actually matter? The file entry, we added getting the URL from use file info and passed it along to open. And file info, we also now get the URL and we use path in most cases, but in the URL case, we have a special thing for that now. In the shortcut case, sorry. Again, we pass the URL along and from open to open process function. Open process function correctly adds URL to the process. And also if it exists, then the process ID has changed its name so that you can have multiple processes running. I've added process to the type. Got the base URL shortcut piece added. And I've also updated the hello world shortcut to properly use the app structure now. So what did that get us? That got us a couple things there. Allow running multiple windows from same app. It did more than that, you know. Allow running URLs in apps and multiple instances of app. Yeah, multiple instances of app. Okay. So yeah, we did a lot with that little item right there. I'm going to commit that. Speak now or forever hold your peace. If you cared about that one, it's gone. Too late. Too late, hot plate. All right. So, boy, we just did a lot. All that's left, luckily, is the x86 stuff. What are we? An hour and 45 minutes in, and we haven't even got to which was essentially the main piece. So, I mean, let's dive in. You know, we've got everything set up now for it, right? We got the way the shortcuts are. We got all sorts of stuff. Sorry. I finished the old Red Bull there. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's start showing you guys what I'm talking about here. So this is x86. Oops, spoiler there. So their UI is pretty simple, and that's an advantage I've found with a lot of these emulator things that I've been finding, or just a lot of cool browser in the browser things like WebAssembly demos, is that they're poorly done as far as visually, like demonstrating it. The apps themselves are like amazing, like wow, you built an entire emulator, but then look at this interface is just like, what is this? Like people aren't gonna look at this. You have to be technical to look at this. Whereas I'm hoping it'll be like just clicking a little penguin icon and getting right into something. And I'll show you what theirs look like. Let me find one here. I want a really simple one. I mean, MS-DOS is pretty simple. Like we'll get into some cooler ones. Like watch Windows 95. So I click Windows 95, boom, you're in Windows 95. That's how we're gonna have it at some point with our snapshots and stuff. But that's a whole other mess that we'll have to get into. react.js, that's another one that can run. It's funny, they have a Linux one that they have on their demos, but they don't have it here, I don't think, unless it's this build root one. Let me check this. I think it's this one. Yeah, there we go. So that's pretty cool, Linux. Flies by. Wow, there's actually boots faster than mine, I think. I'm jealous. I think theirs boots faster than mine. I wonder how much my 3JS wallpaper really slows things down, you know? Anyways, this is a complete x86 emulator, basically. I mean, it's not complete, but it runs a lot of stuff. The Linuxes, Windows, all sorts of stuff. We're still going to use JS-DOS because JS-DOS is, I think, better in some ways for certain things. And the code's not too complex, so why not have both? And I actually have a future idea of having many. Like there's another emulator called PCE.js. And I almost thought it'd be cool if Virtual PC could just run many different things. Like the PCE.js could do Mac Plus and stuff, and it can do other systems emulation. So it'd be a cool one. But anyways, let's start looking at this project. So if you look at this guy's project, this is open source. x86 virtualization in your browser. Recompiling x86 to WASM on the fly. Cool. So you see it does a lot here, like a lot of promises. And if we get into the example of how to set it up, it's really easy. So like basically once you have this x86 starter piece, you just pass in this config of like, I want to use this ISO. I want to auto start. Here's the BIOS that he provides. Here's the container. And these ones I really like. The container ones, the libraries where it's like, just give me a container and I'll put everything you need in it. That's exactly what we want. So as far as good examples of this, there's one called starter. This is in their examples, I think, or is this the source code? Actually, this is the source code for starter for the config basically. So I use this to kind of figure out the config. So we'll reference this, but I'm going to dump a bit of it in and just know that I got this from here. I didn't just pull it out of my you know what kind of thing. But it's cool how much this can do, and I think we'll get further into it at some point. What other ones here? Let me just look at what other links I have. Some of the OSs we're gonna run, I'm gonna run 2 of them. I'm gonna run a Linux one, and I'm gonna do this Colibri. Yeah, I don't know what they're, some kind of cool OS. It's just a couple of megabytes. Oh, I didn't jump to it, sorry guys. It's this here, Colibri. I don't know how to pronounce it, but there's a little YouTube video of it here. He basically has this thing running on all sorts of systems, and it's like just a couple megabytes, and it's like a complete graphical OS. So that alone is a cool little demo, and it's a lot faster than some of the other ones that I have. So yeah, we're gonna get a Linux icon. We're gonna convert the PNG to a .ico file because I like to use .ico files for now. I've already gone through this. Is this the URL format? Okay, I've already extended the URL format, so we don't need to discuss that. I can actually move that. Oh no, what did I do? Let me move this link to here because I actually did that at that step. Icon convert, no. Browser, the starter one, yeah, that's where I get my config stuff from. Difference of instances, I don't know why I had that. That was for that message, I think. Why did I have this? Oh, this is for TypeScript. This is for when we get into typing a class that I import from a script. I was trying to figure out how to do it, and I can do this like interface new to make a class. I'm gonna have to copy paste a little bit of what I did for you guys and just kind of we'll explain it, but there's so much code to make this work, but at the same time there's not. So that's why we can talk about it all, but I don't know if line for line we're gonna go through every little, well, we will go line through line. So let's get into it, right? Enough talk. So I want to look at the code quick here to see it, because it's not all isolated, so it's going to be a little tricky to kind of grab it all. But I think we've gone through most other pieces. So yeah, let's just jump right into this piece, and I'm just going to copy it, and I'm just going to explain to you guys what I did here to start. So in components, in the apps folder, we need to make a new app. I'm going to make a folder for it because I'm going to start co-locating a bunch of stuff in one folder for when it's all related. So we'll call it v86, and we'll do our thing where we name the first one index. So you can just import the folder and it'll get the rest. And I'm just going to paste what I've done here. Oops, I closed my running instance there. I didn't mean to do that. So let's just paste what I had here, and let's kind of go over it, because it's the theory of it, this part. And this is what I like about hooks, and this is what I've kind of done here. So first, let's go to their example too. So if we go back to v86, I'll just show you the example so you can see where I got this from. So they have, in v86, they have examples basic. So basically they have the config here. So basically you load the script, you load v86 that they give you. You do this config that you pass into their class. And then here's the, as they say, a minimal structure for the screen adapter. So you need this little minimal structure here. Basically, it's just the container. And the reason there's 2 of them is like the div one is when it's doing text display, and the canvas is when it's doing graphical display. So it's kind of neat the way they've got it. And I figured this out along the way when I was working on the resizing stuff. So here's the minimal thing that they suggest. So it's just like a div with a div inside and a canvas inside. And I've got a reference to it here that I'm passing, and I'm using the lock mouse function so that when you click on the container, it'll allow you to put your mouse to be in the emulator. And I'll show you how I got lock mouse shortly. So basically the function is pretty simple. So it's this v86 app. It gets ID that we get from all our apps. We use it to get the URL, just like we did with our Hello World example. Screen ref is just that reference here, just like they use that there. Because in the example here, they are doing get element by ID. But in React, that's not how you do it. Typically, you do the use ref. So that's just like the basic example. The only thing that's additional, really, and same with here too. You see here how they have the text style here of line height 14, font 14. So they've set a 14 as the number there. So that's basically all that I've done. But I've made a hook for it to control it so that it could be a different number, and that number actually is relevant to how the sizing would work. So I think it's good to kind of put it there in case that number were to change. You know, it's not going to, but. So I have one hook that handles the screen size to keep the window right with what the emulator is sending. And from that, I get the text style. even though only thing I need very little from here, but I get a little bit. Basically what was in the basic example. And then the only other hook that I'm using is this use v86, which is basically doing what was happening here, but I moved it into a hook. And you see that what you get from that is you get this emulator. So that's what my hook does, is it gives me back the emulator, and it also gives me a lock mouse function because I want to use it here when you click the container. So otherwise that's pretty simplified. And like I say, it's basically just like the basic example that you just saw. So let's start making some of these things that I've magically imported. Let's start with the style v86 here. So we'll go into styles, components. We need to make an apps folder, apps, and in there we need to make another folder called v86. And in there we need to make the file, which is called styled v86.ts. And I'll just paste what I wrote there as well, and I'll go over that. So for that, like I say, it's the div, just like their example. This is the same here, position relative and whitespace pre. I believe that's exactly what they had in their demo. Whitespace pre. They did not have position relative. Why did I put position relative? I don't quite remember why I've done position relative, but I'm trying to. Oh, right. This part's a little wonky. This part, I'm gonna take position relative out and I'm gonna put it somewhere else. So basically, this is weird and I haven't figured out this behavior, and I'll have to figure it out in another episode. But when it's the text display, for some reason it's like 2 pixels higher than the container that it's in. And I don't know why. So the reason I have position relative is I'm doing top adjustment, just the minorest little bit of top adjustment, I believe. And I've got some math for it where I'm thinking like, maybe it's the border. So I'm using the border, which happens to be 1 pixel, and there's several of them, but I don't think it's correct, the logic there. So I'm going to paste it and I'm going to tell you that that's temporary until I figure out exactly why it works, because I'm doing like tuning without, I've got a magic number that I've made not magic by giving it a name, but I don't think it's the right name, basically. So, but we'll move that in a second. So let's just say that this is exactly like how the demo was, the example. And then the other piece, this piece here is tricky, and I'm going to keep it in and I'll just explain to you why I have it. So basically, I'm using this to override their override. So they have, I've looked through the v86 issues, and on certain, when the graphical display is a certain way, v86 in their code, they've decided to double the height and width that's been set on the canvas. And someone reported an issue of that, and the coder, the person who made it, was like, oh yeah, it looked funny to me, so I've made it bigger. Well, that maybe works when it's your whole page, but it doesn't work for me when it's contained in a window. So I don't want them doing that. So I'm just going to say the canvas is always the same, and any kind of height and width adjustments is going to be done in the window, you know? So this fixes that basically. And I could hide this. I could comment this out. I'll comment this out for now, but I've explained it. And then I'll show you later where it manifests itself, and then I'll change this and you'll see it instantly fixes it. So for now, this is a styled component that's exactly like the example, where it's just the div that has the white space pre. And like I said, the 14 pixel stuff, we've moved to another hook because that number is actually relevant to how big the window is. So we might need to use that. So there's that piece done. We got the styled this piece here, even though it doesn't seem to resolve it. Let me close and open here and then it'll find it. Yeah, it found that now. So next is the use v86. That's a big one. So let's make the use v86 hook. And let me look at what I did there. What did I do? So this is a big one. I don't know if I want to just copy this one and just show you guys. I think we're going to, because I just done so many things that it's better I just paste it and just explain it to you, honestly. But just trust me that this is only this last week of work and we're going through it all, you know? And I think there's a few things I want to change too. So I'm pasting it all in and then we're going to go through it. So you can see this part here is kind of familiar. Here's the v86 starter with the config. This essentially matches the basic example here with the config pieces, but I moved some of them out. I've kept the dynamic pieces in the hook, and I've moved out the settings that I always want to be the same into another file. And we'll actually go through those first, maybe? Yeah, let's go through those first. So I have another file here called config, and I'm going to make it now, and I'm going to show you the pieces that are not changing. So let me just find the config that I've got here. Where did there it is. So let's paste in the config, and then let's go to that starter page, and I'll show you guys where I got it from. So this was me reading just the code as to like, here's the config settings he said. And then the config settings that I've decided are all the time. So I always want it to auto start. I want the log level to be 0 because I don't care about the logs. For me, I just want it to be as fast as possible. This part's cool. This part's the file system that I was talking to you guys about. The ability to read my fake file system. And oh man, this gets into a whole bunch of things I changed. Actually, I didn't change that much. But basically there's, if you guys remember in that build fs command that I run in public here, is it in public? No, currently it's not. Currently there's a file that gets made called public.json. It's like a JSON version of my file system. And this guy, the v86 guy, he has his own Python script he made to do something very similar, to make a JSON version of a fake files folder, basically. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to have two JSON indexes for my file system for different use cases. One's for Browserfs, one's for this v86 emulation stuff. So we'll get into that in a minute or a couple minutes as to how I make this JSON file using the scripts that they provided and actually converting them to JavaScript, and I'll show you what I did there. But this is the basic syntax for how to use it. So you say file system, you say the base fs, you point to the JSON file you made, and the base URL is essentially right on the root. So that means that when you're in the v86 and you try to access a fake file, it's going to make a real request at the base URL of my website. And I've explained to you guys why that only works currently with real files that are on the server and not files that are created after the fact. Because for those, I need to catch fetch, and I need to use my fake Browserfs. So the next cool part is this network relay URL. Now this is another cool thing that he's set up, where he's actually got it to be able to do networking with the virtual machine. And it has like a little emulation layer where it uses a WebSocket proxy. Now in the future, I might host my own WebSocket proxy. But for now, I've kind of just borrowed his that he's got on his website here. If you go to his site, you see he's got it right here listed. So I don't know if that's his or not, and I'm not abusing it or nothing, but if he wants me to change it, I will. For now, I don't care. I'm just leaving it like that because it's just demonstration purposes stuff. This literally isn't even hosted anywhere. So currently, my app, that is. Next piece is completely required, the path to the WASM file. It always is there. You always need that. Same with the BIOS and the VGA BIOS. These are files that he provides and they don't change. So we're just going to use those. So let's just do that right now. So these need to be libs. These need to be accessible via fetch requests. So I'm going to put these in the public directory to be accessed later. So I'll make a folder called libs, and in there we'll make another folder called v86. And now we need these files. So this is where I get a little sneaky. Now he explains exactly how to build these, but I'm lazy, so I just don't want to do that. So I'm just going to use the ones he's built because I'm assuming the person who made it has the latest stuff. So if I look at his network here, I see here this access here. I see this URL to like a folder that includes build. So I'm just going to use that to get the files that I need. So the first file I need is this WASM file. So there's that one there. He hosted that. Same with these BIOS files. I think the BIOS files are actually in the repo. So I'm going to go to the repo for that. So what is it here? v86. Yeah, BIOS. Here we go. VGA BIOS download. And the C BIOS download. Don't ask me what these are exactly. I'm not that kind of guy that knows that stuff. Obviously, it's not relevant to me running this. What other files did I need? I needed that lib file. That's the other important one. Because if you look at if we go back to that basic example, there's this lib file, and that also I don't have. But he does have it. So, oh, it changed the URL on me, or did it? Yeah, it did. What was it? It was just build. There we go. Cool, and that's that file. So let's save that one too. So I think we have the 4 files that we probably need. So let's jump back into the code here. And I'm going to open up the libs folder on my Explorer and just drag those ones in that I needed. So which ones were they? The wasm file, the BIOS files, and the BIOS files need to go into a BIOS folder. Well, they don't need to, but I'm organizing this stuff. So there we go. So if we, just to see that here, where is it here? There we go. It's happening there. So v86 BIOS has the BIOSes, there's the wasm file, and then the only other file missing is the lib file, which I'll also put right there. There we go. So now we have that file as well. And remember, now we're ignoring the public folder, so it's not going to try to reorganize any of that stuff. So those files just need to stay there as is. That's the library files to allow the emulator to run, basically. So this part of the config is not going to change. And then this piece here I also figured out from his code. If you go back to the browser, if you go to his page here, and you, where is it here? Yeah, you see this drop down here. If I inspect this drop down, it actually has the settings right here. So CD floppy hard drive is 213. So that's all I did here. CD floppy hard drive is this 213. That matches the way he had it written in his code. So I've made these constants because I have different, if you load a .img file, it tries to make it a floppy. And if you load a CD, it tries to make ISO, it's a CD. And I picked the boot so that it just as fast as possible, you know? Don't try to load floppy if I just gave you an ISO, that kind of thing. So there I explained the config. So that's this piece here that's coming from, now we're importing that. That part's correct. So if I reopen that, it got this now. So the next piece is the types. That's a tricky one. That's another one I'm just going to copy pasta in here because, man, I wrote a lot of types. Actually, I didn't write that many, but I've decided to organize them this way because it's better. So let's just write, I'm just going to paste it in here and explain to you what types I've made here. So first one that I thought was kind of neat that I've done is I've imported that config that I just made and I'm using it in my types. So, and you see here when I make a v86 config, I say a type of everything I already defined there and the other stuff, the dynamic stuff that I care about. So the dynamic stuff is the memory size, the video memory size, the boot order, whether it's a CD-ROM or a floppy, the URL for it, and the screen container. Those are the things that I need to handle in the hook. Those can't be like hard-coded in because those change. I mean, the memory size doesn't have to change. I could just say always 1 GB, but I've made a little bit of code to do some logic there just in case for people on mobile to make it a little more light, perhaps. So I'll go over the logic of that. So that's the type there. That's this piece here. What's the next thing I got? Yes, so there's these functions that were on the starter that I wanted to use. Where's the starter code again? Oops, that's not it. I don't know what that is. That's not what I wanted anyways. There we go. So the starter piece here. So there's a few functions. What are they here? So I wanted to have some listeners because I found that that's the way to capture what the resolution is. So I was looking around for listeners and I found the 2 commands, add listener and remove listener. And I saw their basic specs right there. So I created types for those. I called it event listener, where there's event and then there's the callback, the listener basically. And the 2 cases that I care about, both of them return arrays of numbers. So that's what I've written here for the event callback basically, that's what the callbacks are. In one case, it's width and height. And in the other case, it's rows and columns, the numbers. And I do different math depending on which it is, and I'll show you guys. So that's the basics for add listener and remove listener. And then destroy, that's the cleanup event. That's another one that I found here and that I saw people mentioned. That's a good one to have to keep things clean. And what was the next piece? Yes, and lock mouse. That's another one I wanted to have so that the mouse can be controlled in the thing. And that's another function I found. And most of these I found from, like, this is the basic example, but if you go to examples, they have other ones here. And some of the other ones kind of get into some of the stuff that I found. And I just discovered this by just looking at the examples, searching the code, looking at the issues and stuff that other people had. So none of this was like, I don't know the guy, or this is just me trying to play with it. So remember the constructor part, the new v86 starter. That's where I figured out how to do it this way. So that's because I want to redefine window within TypeScript because v86, when I load the script, it just puts itself in the window object. So for TypeScript to understand that, I have to essentially make another type that has window, and window is basically this. It's window and type of global this. From what I've seen TypeScript show. So I do that. I say this plus this with the normal window and this little piece that I've added, which is the v86 starter, which has that constructor that expects you to pass in the config, and it gives you out the v86 starter, which I only care about those functions for. So that's where I extended window. And then like I was saying too, where I've made the memory dynamic, I've done that by leveraging the navigator.device memory, which I can show you quickly. Oops, what I clicked there. So Navigator has this thing called device memory. It says it's experimental, but it seems like a couple people use it. Firefox doesn't, but Chrome and Edge and stuff. So I can get it from some people, Android as well. And it basically gives you a weird number. It gives you this maximum of 8 to say you have at least 8 gigabytes. So I've added some logic that if you have at least 8 gigabytes, I'm going to take 1 gigabyte for the OS, for the emulation. Otherwise, I kind of do like a halving thing. If you only have at least 4, then I take 512, that kind of thing. So these are the types, basically. That's just a way for me to define this script that I've imported because they don't have their own types defined. So now we have that piece. Let's close this again and open it again so it smartens up. There we go. Those two are resolved. Use file system, yeah. Extension name, okay. So here's 2 other ones that I don't have yet. So load script. So that's basically my solution for this piece here. So rather than have a script tag, I want the script to load dynamically. And I've looked into how to do that. And I'm just going to kind of show you guys what I've done in the end by just pasting it in. And where did I put it? I put it within the file functions, I think. Yeah. So in our code here, under utils, file functions, I've just made a command called load script. And basically all that load script is doing is it creates an element, a script element, sets the source, and then on load it calls its callback. And then all I have to do to make it start is to append it to the document. So I go document head, append child to script. It's pretty simple, really. I'm basically just exactly what the example is. I make a script object, I set the source, and then I can use this callback to know that it's loaded. So pretty simple. Load script, take in source and a callback. And you don't return anything, just run the callback after the script's loaded. So that's that piece. And what was the other piece that I added? Oh yeah, that's a tricky piece. We're gonna talk about this a little bit. And this is a tricky one. So it's this here thing called buffer to URL. Actually, let's not even get to that quite yet. Let's get to that right at the end, because that's a tricky one. But again, this is all stuff I had to figure out throughout the week just to get this going. And now we're just kind of discussing it all a little bit. So I've got load script now. We're going to worry about buffer to URL later. And I'm just going to explain what I've done here. So I've got another type. I think this type I can move with the other types because I got a file called types. So let's just move that type there too. There we go. V86 starter needs to be here, I guess. Maybe I don't need to export V86 starter anymore. Yeah, I don't think so. Instead, I just need to export this. There we go. So the V86 starter, or my component, right, yeah. Like I was saying, it returns an emulator and the lock mouse function. That was part of here. That's this here. So the emulator and lock mouse. So now I can just import that piece. And it's returning that. Oh man, I gotta take my hoodie off. It's so warm in my office. Insanely warm in here. I might even open up the window actually a little bit. You can hear some car noise, guys. Oh, honestly. Although it's pretty late, so we might not hear any car noise. but it's too hot. I'm gonna drink some water too. It's hard to talk all the time in these streams, but I want you guys to get my thought process. Oh, I got a message here from someone I missed earlier. Sean Brown. Oh, let me toggle timestamps to see when I got that. 10:50. Oh, I'm 20 minutes ago. Darn it! I keep missing these messages. Sorry again. Thank you, Sean. Awesome stuff, Dustin. Thanks for what you're doing. I got to hit the hay, so I'll have to catch the rest later. Oh, no problem at all, Sean. But thanks for the message, and thanks for the appreciating what I'm doing here. So, okay, let's get back to the code here. Oh, so I do need v86 starter actually, because I use it here to set the emulator state. I forgot about that. So let's get it there, and we also need to export it here. There we go. So a lot of exporting going on in this types file. So yeah, let's get into what I wrote in the hook here. So we know about this. We know that use v86 takes the URL and the screen container object. That's what we saw here, right? The screen ref object and the URL. And what does it do with it? So we keep track of the emulator that we set emulator. We got that lock mouse function, which as you see here is just emulator.lockmouse. So I just exported that when the emulator updates. And we access the file system because we're going to need to read the file. So we got our use effect here. So as soon as the component's loaded, we start up. And if the emulator exists, that's when we start doing stuff. And I've actually got the return destroy function too. So the cleanup on this component will destroy the emulator, which we want. That cleans things up. And so if the emulator exists, it tries to read the file, the URL. It gets the contents, same way that the shortcut reading works. This is the same logic that I have in get shortcut, I believe. If we look, yeah, you see, fs read file, error, contents buffer. I might even turn this into a function at some point because I'm doing the same thing a few times, but I don't know how boilerplate that needs to be. So where were we here? Right, so we get the file. And then as soon as we have the file, now that we have it, we can figure out the extension because we're gonna need based on if it's an ISO or an image is gonna decide how we do a few things. Although to be honest here, this could be one level deeper. So the file's read, then we load the script. And after we load the script, then we focus on this, right? Yeah. Actually, do I even need? Why don't I extension? I only use extension just there, I think. So I'm just going to do that. There we go. So extension name, URL to lowercase. So if it's an ISO, we say is ISO. Otherwise, we just assume it's not an ISO, it's an image. And I'll show you how we'll set that up in a minute, in a few minutes. So here's what I was talking about with the navigator, where we get device memory. If there's nothing there, we assume 8, we assume bigger. And then we do the ratio 8 divided by 8, let's say in this case would be 1. So that's like the 1 gigabyte. So this memory ratio is basically how many gigabytes we're going to have. Maybe I should word it that way. I wonder. Just put per gig. No, I'll have memory ratio for now, but that's that could use a better description. That's a refactor for another day. So then all we do is we do that create object, like was on the basic example where we say new v86 starter. Now I have to do this with TypeScript to say the window that I want to access is the special window that has the v86 starter that I've defined. And then we just define those dynamic things, the memory size and VGA size. These numbers are just like the example again. You see same numbers there, but where they did 32 megabytes, I guess. I've done another multiplying, and then I've done the ratio. And here I'm trying to get 32 megabytes of video memory if I can. And then boot order here, I do, if it's ISO, we do CD first. Otherwise, we do floppy drive first. Here, I base the key on if it's CD-ROM or F floppy drive based on the is ISO field. And this part's the same, the URL piece. And we'll get to this in a second involving the buffer. Screen container, we just say screen container.current to get the newest, the most current ref to the screen container. And then we dump in the rest of the config that's hard-coded. So that's all that it is. It's very similar to the example, actually. The most complicated part probably is that screen resolution stuff. So we'll get to that. But let's talk about buffer to URL first now. So the trick here is that the v86 does not accept a file. It only accepts a URL. So we could to give a URL, we could give a base64 encoded URL, or we could give this buffer URL. And what is the buffer URL, you ask? Let me show you the function that I've made, because that probably explains it. So buffer to URL basically takes in a buffer, and it does the same kind of logic that I was doing for that other thing, where it converts it to an int array. Where else are we doing this? In fact, was it a buffer in the other scenario? For file drop. Right, so if we assume, yeah, this was an array buffer, and it did the same thing. It turns it into this, interesting. Because here it turns it back into a buffer. So maybe this is just converting an array buffer into a buffer in this case. So here you got a buffer. So the file is a buffer now. And that's why here we take the buffer and we kind of flip it back, I guess. We convert it back into an int array. And then we convert it into a blob so that we can do this create object URL. So don't ask me how I figured this out, because I'm not even confident in it. We're going to mess with it. And that's essentially how I figured it out. But let's do a search here, because I want to talk about this. So this create object URL is a static method, creates a DOM string containing a URL representing the object given in the parameter. The URL lifetime is tied to the document in the window. And it says here, the new object URL represents the specified file object or blob. So that's why I think if it's file object, maybe I can just pass the buffer in. I don't know, maybe. But one piece I'm missing is this piece here. To release an object, do the revoke. I don't have revoke yet. I only just recently realized that I should do that. So I don't have it, but we're gonna do that at some point. But for now, what I'm doing here is I take the file contents that comes from here, which is a buffer, and I say buffer to URL right away. But what I wanna try is buffer to URL where I don't do all that other crap. So let me try that, although I don't know if we're there yet. Let's try this actually. Let's take this piece here and add that to the comment and just try this. Does that work? It doesn't give me red squiggly lines. So let's just write it like that for now and see where that gets us. And if this works, I might just move this to be the function, because this is so simple that this could just be what I use. And it actually word-wise looks better. And as far as how the cleanup function would work, I guess it would be a piece of this. The trick is that, well, yeah, I would have to clean it up here if I use it here. Let's just see if it works first. So let's just leave that piece of code and let's see what the next thing is we have to deal with. Maybe if we don't care about the visuals, we can at least see it functioning now. Well, let's care about the visuals too, because there's like 3 other things we can do. Let's go look at the code and see what the next piece is that we can do. So we got the load script and the buffer thing. I'm going to call that done. We don't use this now. For a while I was using events to try to do the updating, but that was not necessary. So here I've reworded, oh yeah, that's a whole other thing when we get into how I made for the file system making piece. Line height, yeah, we need line height there. I did this last time where I minimized the things that I don't need to deal with anymore because I've already dealt with them. Position and relative, I'm not done with that. I've copied the libraries, we copied all these files. Let's make the shortcuts next, actually, because that's fun and it's obviously needed. So remember I said I wanted to run Linux. So let's make a Linux shortcut. So we go to our desktop. Let's just copy the hello world example and we'll call it Linux. And the base URL remembers the app. So we'll say the app is v86 and the URL is going to be images/linux 4.image, or is it ISO? Now, what is linux 4.iso? It is just something that guy gave us. So if we go to v86 again, his code, he actually says here that he has those images for use. So he says right here for testing, here's some images right here you can use. So, I mean, that's not his exact wording, but so here's the Linux 4 one that he's already kind of configured. So we're going to take that one. And the other one that's cool is this Calibri, but we're going to use the fresh Calibri. So Calibri image download, I think. Yeah, so this is the Calibri site, and we're going to get this version here. It also has the icon. So those are two images two OSs that we're going to load. And I also wanted to get a Linux icon. I'm going to use the one I used last time, I think was this one. Yeah. So we're going to save this icon here. And that's a PNG. So we're going to go PNG to ico. And I think it was this one I used. Yeah, this is a decent one. So we're going to just use that icon here, upload it. Now, same thing. I only want the 48 by 48 version. So I say convert ico, download. For some reason, I have to go copy link and then paste it here. I don't know why. So there we go. So we got the files that we cared about. Let's go back into the code here and make that images folder called images here. And I'm going to move the things into there that I care about. So the Linux ISO, as you can see, I've just put there. And then as far as the Calibri thing, it's actually a 7-zip file, which is a zip file basically. I'm going to extract that, and then I'm going to move the Calibri image in. So there it is right there, calibri.img. And we'll also make that shortcut at the same time then. Oh, did I just change the hello world shortcut? Which shortcut did I change? I think I changed the wrong shortcut here. Let me undo that. There we go. And I wanted to change the Linux shortcut there. So that was the Linux shortcut. And then let's also make this other one that I can barely pronounce the name of it. I'm going to call it Calibri. I don't know if that's correct. And it's calibri.img. So there's our two shortcuts. Now they need to have correct icons. So we're going to make an icons folder. We're not going to move the favicon there though. The favicon needs to stay there. And eventually the Hello World app won't exist. So the Calibri one is calibri.ico, and they actually provide that in the 7-zip file. And the Linux one will be linux.ico. And that one I just converted, as you guys saw. So we had our icons where we already had unknown in there. And on top of that, we're going to add the two icons that I made. So one is called Linux, which I'll just drag on. And the other one, the Calibri one, is in their Calibri folder. So there they are right here, as you see. And I'll just rename this to be like that. So there we have our icons. And now we can do build fs to get to update our file system with all these new files. Build fs, that'll update that. And if we refresh our page now, you see there we got our cool icons. We got our Linux icon and we got our Calibri. Now I don't know if they work yet. I'm not gonna play that game yet. I mean, I just want to review what we've got before I play the game of double clicking and seeing what happens and what doesn't. So types we're good with. I think this page we've kind of explained. It's basically like the basic example. We're not sure if we need this yet. If we do, then it won't work when we double click. But the other piece is the resizing the visuals. That's another important one. And that one is called use v86 screen size. So that's going to be another one where I'm just going to dump it in, and we're going to discuss what the heck did I do, because I did a lot. How big is this file? Oh, this is the biggest one. This one's huge. Well, it's not. It's 70 lines. It's not so bad. But the logic of how I figured this out is where it gets tricky. So first thing we'll do is we're going to add line height, because you remember how line height's 14 in that example. We're going to use line height and we're going to add it to our theme, even though I don't know if we would want to mess with it ever, honestly. But let's make it themable. Why not? So it's the only thing we're adding to the theme today, and we're going to add it into the sizes. Yeah, here's sizes here under the window. So we already have window outline, so we're just going to add window line height. Because essentially that is what this is. So line height is a string, and then in the default theme under sizes, we have to add it here, line height, and we know that it's 14 pixels, just like that basic example was. Cool, so we have line height there. So now this isn't complaining anymore. So now we can discuss what I've done here. So let's ignore these constants for a second. So what is this getting passed in? It was getting passed the ID and the emulator. So why does it need those two things? So the ID, it's using For updating the window state. Right, because this is the thing that's directly modifying the window size when it sees the changes. So it needs the ID to know which window to change. And it needs the emulator so that it can add those listen events for the changes. So we get the set window states function to update the windows. We get the line height, which is 14 in this case, from the theme. And then we make the command to update the window size. So it's a callback that takes height and width and just sets window size. It's pretty much exactly what's going on in the component, the window component here. When the window closes and it sets the size, that's basically what's going on here. But it's not doing position, only size. I think it gets, yeah, no position, just size. And otherwise it's pretty much the same. It doesn't have this default logic because it doesn't need it. So yeah, you see here, it only focuses on size. It doesn't do anything to position. And I wonder, I guess it doesn't get rid of position. Yeah. Yeah, because I don't have anything to auto change position. So even though I am kind of resetting position, position's only ever set when the window's closed, and it raises it from the element, not from the state. So that's perfectly fine. If in the future I have a way to forcefully set the position in the same way that I'm allowing apps to set size, then I may need to bring position in here. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it. So yeah, so update window size just updates the window size. Very simple. It's exactly what the window does when it closes, except that we've added this auto resize stuff. So that's all that does. And then where do we use it? We use it in two places. So we use it to set the screen graphics when it changes to graphical, and we use it to set text when it changes to text. And before we look at what this does, oh no, what I moved there? I want to show you the use effect that actually hooks into these listen events. So the use v86 screen size hook has a use effect that where basically when it loads and when any of this stuff changes, it kind of adds listeners, and it also removes them too. So it does all the cleanup as well. So the listeners are basically listening for two kinds of events that I've set as constants: the screen updating and then the text updating. And it adds them here and removes them here. And if we look at those constants, there are these two things here: screen-set-size-graphical. Now, that is another thing I got from Starter as well. If I search here, I think, or where did I get that from? Let me search. I think it was one of their examples, maybe. It might have just been looking through the code. Oh, here we go. Source browser main. I think I was just looking through the code for add listener events. And I think this had all of them. There's somewhere where it lists all the events, I think. I think there's somewhere actually in the docs where it says, look at this list of events, and that doesn't exist. But this was just hunting around the repo to find this out, basically. So anyways, that's the event. It triggers. Ooh, I flipped on you guys there. It triggers for graphical updates, and there's a text one here. So I've got these two events to look for. And so let's say in the graphical instance, it's very easy, because it gives us a width and a height, and all I do is say update the width and height and account for the title bar, the window title bar. So it's like, I want the window to be the height that you've given me plus the title bar. So, and that's something I'm getting from the theme here as well. Not only line height, but title bar, so that I can do the title bar height. So that one's really easy, and there's no wonkiness there. The text one is where I had to do the offsets, and I had to do some weirdness. And I haven't figured this out. So I have this border offset of 3 right now, but I don't think it's based on border like I told you guys. So I don't know what's going on there. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same thing. So if rows is equivalent to height, so it's the same idea where I did the rows times the line height to get the height plus the title bar height. That's cool. But then I had to add that border offset just a little bit. Haven't figured out why yet on that part. But that's what made it pixel perfect, at least. That's what made the alignment exact. Now, why it was misaligned, I don't know. And then as far as the width, that was another weird one. So Coles, it gave me like 80 or something, but it's actually more like 40 plus 4. You know, that's another weird offset. I don't know what the plus 4 is about either. That's another magic number. But if you just take the cols and you go, okay, cols times line height, then you get something way too big. So I think there's some logic there that I don't know about how cols works. So if someone wants to tell me later, great. And at some point I'm going to refactor this. I'm going to figure out why border offset and why +4 are needed. But those are what needed to get exactly the right pixels. So you guys will have to trust me for now. And maybe there's a logic behind it. But that's the only wonkiness, really. Otherwise, it's extremely obvious what I did. Like, the emulator tells me, hey, the height or width has changed. And I go, okay, I'll update the window. That's all I'm doing. And then what do I return from all this hookness? Not too much. So I basically returned that line height that I got from that's passed in from the theme. I set the line height here in the font. That's just like the example. And this top, that's the offset. That's the wonky offset. And that's that one piece that note that I made. Where did I make that? I think that's in the styled component. Yeah, components, apps. Here, yeah, position relative. Let's not have that there. So let's set that here as well. So the reason I need position relative is because I had to force the top there. So once I figure out, maybe I don't need top. Maybe I just need to figure out why it's a couple up and fix it somewhere else completely. And then I won't need either of these. That's why I want them to be together. So LMNOPQRST, alphabetically speaking. So save that. So that's pretty good like that. That's just for doing the resizing of the window heights. So remember, we still have that graphical glitch we're going to have where it's too big in certain cases. We'll fix in a second, but I want it to manifest before we. I mean, I could. Let's not even worry about that. Let's just comment that in. Let's just put that in there because you guys don't need to see it manifesting to just trust me, you know? Like in the same way that you're trusting me for this offset here. I'm going to I mean, this for sure we need because I've looked in the docs and it's just the way that he did it. I could change the code like libv86 to not do this doubling for like the font is where he cared about it. But this works and it's CSS and it's easy. But as far as this offset, I don't know. That's another thing. Anyways, both of those I've explained to you why I've done them that way. So, okay. So what do we have to do now? We still have to do some stuff. So now if I were to double click this, actually this might work. Let's refresh the page and let's try it. Let's go to the browser so we have a better window, bigger window here. Let me clean out this, clear my storage and refresh the page. So there we go. So let's just try it out and let's see. So I'm going to double click this. Nothing happened. So why? There's a very good reason why, but I'm blanking on it. Well, now we can start going through it and trying to figure it out. So I clicked the shortcut, and what would have happened next? Let's look through our changes here actually first, before we even just try jumping in. Let's just continue. So we've done everything there. We've done all that stuff too. We've done the types, and we've done this, and we've done the config. And that's just notes, and that's the ignoring stuff that we already did. So there's a ton of stuff we just did. We did this piece. We got that's file drop stuff. Yeah, that's the auto window size stuff. There's a background piece that I missed too, but it shouldn't be relevant to why it didn't run. Yeah, here's the background color thing. We'll get to that in a minute. This I didn't need anymore. File drop we already dealt with. Buffer to URL here. Yes, this is for another piece. We'll get to that in a minute too. That's another thing. So there's two other pieces I wanted to add actually. That load image icon dynamically. That's something. Oh, sorry guys. Let me jump to code. I have to make another note here. Load image icon dynamically. That's something I want to add that we didn't do. That should have been in my. That's like housekeeping and maintenance almost. But I guess I didn't have dynamic images before, so that's why I didn't do it. And the other thing was be able to set background. Apps can set background color. So we'll reorganize these in the notes in a minute, but I don't want to lose the fact that that's two other things I want to get to today. So let's just leave that there for a sec. Go back to the browser. So what else are we missing here that's making it not work? Yeah, here I had some complexity that I don't think is needed anymore. Here we had the auto resizing. That works perfectly fine. Again, that's more auto resizing stuff. There's the Webpack stuff. The build FS, oh, that could be part of it. Maybe the file system, because the file system is not correct right now. Yeah, we haven't got the file system here yet. We haven't made that. We'll get to that. The icons, I think, are fine. Those are correct. The stylings, yeah, we got that all established. We've done line height. Again, the file system stuff. This is the file piece here. I wonder if it's just file system, because I think we've literally done every other piece. I don't know if we did this. I don't think I defined in process. I think I actually probably did, but let's double check. Process directory. Oh yeah, I did specify URL. We haven't got to background color yet, but oh yes, there's no process for v86. Oh, sorry guys. Again, I jumped to the code, and so the reason it's not working is there's no process for v86 yet. Even though I've made the app, I haven't loaded it as an option, as a possible process. So v86 apps v86 here has window, yes. So the icon, we need the icon. For that, I want to take his icon, just to keep taking stuff from this guy. So if we view his source here, do I have his icon here? No. Let me just inspect the document. Oh, again, I did that. I don't like his UI at all. I'm sorry. So let's refresh the network here and find the favicon. It should have loaded. Huh, did it? Maybe if I inspect the page. I just want the favicon. Where is it here? Jeez. Let me do a complete clearing cache, because I see he has it. That's funny. How do I get this guy's darn favicon? Well, actually, I probably know where it is. It's probably right here. favicon.ico, is that it? No, what about the root here? There it is. So I'm assuming that's transparent. So I'm going to save that to the desktop, and I'm going to rename it to v86, capital V, I guess. Or I could do lowercase. I do lowercase for the icon names. So back to the code, back to the icons folder, and I'm just going to throw that in there. So now in icons, we have our v86 icon. So that's what I'll call this. That'll be for the title bar and for the systray icon. And the app itself is called v86 without the capital, I guess. Yeah, let's leave it lowercase for the name. I don't know why I have a mix of upper and lowercase v. I'll resolve that at some point. So what other pieces here? So now we can use that auto resizing thing, auto sizing, because here we actually need it. That's about it. So let's do background color too. Let's just slip that in there. So basically one other piece to this puzzle is that the background color on Windows is gray, but I want it to always be black for this. So I want the apps to be able to set a default background color, because maybe it makes sense. You know, in this case, the app's always a terminal app. It should never start gray. So I'll say background color can be whatever. And we'll pass it in here as a string. And then let me just try to remember the simplistic way that I've applied it, because I think it's pretty easy. I think it's just in the window here. Components, system, window, there's the window. Yeah, so we're already grabbing minimized. We'll just grab background color and we'll just literally override it here. There, that's simple enough. So that's all we actually need to do to get the background color there. And then let me just see, is there anything else in my notes that I had to do? I think we could probably move on to the file system piece, but I'm gonna disable the file system in the config now just to see if it boots, because I don't want it to complain about the, I don't want it to complain about the file system if it does have an issue. But let's see if it boots. So where's my config? Components, apps, v86 config. Here, I'm gonna comment out the file system for now. We don't have that right now. And I'm gonna kill the dev environment, and I'm just gonna make sure build still works. And while that's doing that, I'm gonna show you where we're gonna get into the file system piece, because that's another piece that this guy's got. So v86 tools, he's got a thing here called fs to JSON. So this thing here is the version 3 of his fs to JSON thing. And if I go to his issues, there was a guy at some point who had an issue. Was it this guy here? No. I think he did like fs demo, I think he wrote. fs to demo. Huh. I hope I have the shortcut to this guy to give him a little bit of credit, because he essentially wrote the whole thing in JavaScript for me, and then I kind of just cleaned it up. Darn it. Because yeah, this is the basics. So let's just go through the Python script. So for a while I had the Python one, but I've moved to JavaScript. So there's parts of it, like there was a version 2 of this actually. Like if we search the code here, he talks about it. He actually has a repo for fs to JSON. Like there's a whole backstory behind this generation script. So this was version 3, but if you look at the docs, he kind of points you here to this other version, which is actually a version 2 one. And the funny thing is neither of those versions were ideal for me, and neither of them worked. So I think Python, I think it maybe works if you run it on Linux, but on Windows, it was just not working quite right for some of the subfolders. So I'm not happy with either of them, but basically what I've done is I've merged them. Let me try one more time to find, let's say fs to JSON. No, what if I say file system? I think it was this one. Darn it. I wish I could find it, because there was changes not committed. Was this it? It was like can't load files or something like that. Let me see if fs demo, fs to demo, v86 demo. I think it's this one. Okay. That is it. So let me see. Let me go back to the issues for a second and search this now. Oh, I was in the wrong thing for a second there. So if we go to the v86 repo, and in issues, I wanted to find the issue that this guy questioned about 9p file system. So yeah, this guy here, I've created basic code. Yeah, this guy basically created JavaScript to do what that other command was doing. And he figured out how to get it working with this guy's help. But it got me intrigued that he had a JavaScript version of it, which he has right here. And you can see it's similar. You see the same constants that are here. And he's using, this is version 2, and his was a version 2 as well. And now there's the version 3 one. So long story short, take these 3 files and you'll basically get what I made, my version of how I think it should be. And it's this one here called fs to JSON. And all it does is take it's the same thing that like npm run build fs runs a script that makes this JSON fs. That's all this is doing. And I just use their scripts to make my version of it. And we'll just paste, oops. I'm gonna copy the whole thing. This is another one of those files that was really long that I don't want to break up, because it's just this guy's logic for how to do it. So I don't care to change it. I'll just go over what I did. So it's basically the same code. I'm importing all the same kind of functions, same kind of constants. I'm doing a version 3 version. I even do the exact same arguments. So the code didn't need to change too much. I use the same logic of multiple excludes being allowed. I do the same kind of make node stuff that the other guy does, walking the directory. It's exactly the same. It's just an inspiration of mine, of those other ones. One difference that I have is for the files. For some reason, it wasn't setting the targets. I don't know why, but another glitch or whatever, but my version works, you know, and in my opinion, the other versions did not work the way I wanted them to. Like they didn't even have this is file thing in the V2. If we go to this is the V2 version here, and we look at the code here. There's so much code that he had for this, but it's like check, is it a directory? Is it a link? Then it sets target if it's a link, but it never sets it if it's a file. And then in version 3, they do have that, where they do set it if it's a file. Here is file, but they set a hashed version of it. And when I had the hashed version, that did not work for me. I think that's like something that your server has to support that. And I don't know the purpose of that. Why did you need to hash it, you know? And then the JavaScript version, I don't think he sets file either, because he based it on V2. So I set the file path, and I've set it, I've used this code to do relative to the path that I pass in. basically this is just what's required to make the JSON that works the way I wanted it to work. So I don't know if there's a point in going over this because this is just me massaging someone else's code to make it work. But if anyone else wants to use this, here it is, you know? And I don't want to go into it too much more because it's not the code I wanted to write. This is just me fixing that script so that it could work the way I wanted it to work. And it was just necessary, but this exactly fits his spec basically, except that it works. So now that we have that, what did I wanted to update the pieces that run that, which is very few. And I also wanted to do one other thing to do proper ignoring of the files. And so no longer do I want it to be in public.json like it was. So if we look at the browser FS version, which is here, you see, is it here? No, it's not here. It's in file system config. There we go. So I was just getting public.json and then it was here in the root or whatever. I actually don't want that. So I actually looked in browser FS's code for when it generates the file system and it ignores files that start with a dot. And the other script, I can exclude things. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it a dot file so that because I can't exclude files from the browser FS version of the generate script, but if it starts with a dot, it'll ignore it. So I'm going to make a folder in here called .index, and in there and that's where the files are going to go basically. And then here I'm going to change where I'm pointing to this. I'm going to call it bfs.json instead, and I'm going to completely rework this. So now it's in the public folder, so it's something that can be accessed, and it's in the index file, and then it's index folder fs.bfs.json. And the reason I have it there in a folder now is because I have several indexes, two of them, a BFS version and a 9p. And apparently the 9p is some kind of standard, so that's interesting. So other than that, we'll just change this piece here. So yeah, so we're going to put the file there. So let's change this here to point to that. So in the packages is where I run the script. Here it is here. So we go into public, that's okay. Here. So now I want it to actually make it. So we're already in public. So I just want it to go make it in .index. Yeah, that's that. So let's try to run that as that is and see if that makes the file. npm run build fs, and we'll delete the old one, which was called public here. Don't need that anymore. And now if we go to the index folder, did it make it? Yeah, it did. Cool. So now it's in there. So that's that version. And now I need to run the script for the other version. It shouldn't complain about this anymore. Yeah, there we go. Now it's not complaining about that. So now I need to add to this script. And I'm just going to see what I wrote again, because it's a bit of a long command. Not that long. So here, yeah. So I updated that. And then the command is just this piece here. And this matches the fs to json.py file, his Python script. It's the same syntax as far as I recall. So I'll just paste in this other piece here. So it makes the browser FS version and then run another node script. Also, and this one's in utils. Remember, we have to go back a directory because we're in public right now in this context. And then run it with the exclude of .index folder and the output of .index.fs.9p.json. And then you specify here to say dot to say the public folder, the one I'm in right now. And that's where I do that relative magic to make sure the URL matches up. So there we go. So that should create that file as well. So now if I run npm run build fs, boom, really fast. And now you see we have another file system. And I'm going to copy that. I'm going to show you what this looks like, guys and girls. There we go. Process that. And I'm going to copy this and bring it back into my browser. There's probably a faster way to do this. I know, I don't care. And then you can kind of see what the structure is. So you see it's a bit more of an advanced structure in that it's got a lot more information about the file sizes and that kind of thing. And you see there's the path, there's the relative paths. So when v86 makes a request, it's going to make a request on that relative URL. And it's got all of them here. So it's got the correct file structure now. Hopefully. And we'll test that out by actually trying to run any of this. So I just want to see what else is left then in the code, because that's another big piece we just did. We never figured out Browserlist. We haven't done the buffer image thing yet. We did the background color piece. So yeah, the only other piece is the load image icons dynamically. We'll do that right at the end. Let's just get v86. Well, let's not. Let's see if we've already edited use file info, because I want to get this out of the way. Just to switch context for absolutely no good reason. Let's not. I'm sorry for even suggesting it. Let's not switch context. Let's finish this v86 stuff because it's pretty cool. So now we can uncomment file system. We never needed to comment it out. So I'm hoping we've changed enough here to really show you guys this wild demo where it all works. So I hope you guys are ready. Ta-da! No, I didn't run the dev environment yet. Let me run it. npm run dev. I'd closed it for a second there. Refresh this. Don't need to see the console. So now we're going to see some action here. We're going to see some stuff. And we'll do drag and drop as well. So let's check it out. So here we got our OS, right? I'm going to zoom in a bit here so get a better look at it. So here we have our OS. Hey, let's run Linux. Yes. Oh, what happened? Oh, okay. Failed to execute create object URL and URL overload risk. So here's you see even seeing the code here where I commented out. Remember that was my experiment with like not doing blob. So let's take a peek at that then. Where was that? Here it is. So, I guess we need that. What if we just wrap this in new blob? Can we do that? No, you can't just wrap a buffer in that. You can't just wrap a buffer in that, dude. What if we try this? What if we do this piece then? Can we just do this? Okay, let's try that. Let's refresh and see what that does. Back to the browser, run that. Okay, same problem. So let's just use it exactly the way that I'd written it before. Obviously that's necessary. And if you ran into these issues, you would just start fighting through it, I guess. Like if we go to the browser here and it's like create object URL overload, create object URL overload. And then maybe you find an example where someone used it, I mean, that's the Stack Overflow thing. Yeah, see, look at right here, new blob. And then, oh, okay, you passed binary data. And then slowly you just figure it out. That's programming for you. But anyways, so I've saved it again. So I'm going to save and I'm going to refresh the page right away. So let's try again with the correct URL. Look at that. That's literally booting Linux in this window here. Isn't that cool? So there we go. So now we have a virtual machine and you see the maximize is disabled, the resize is there. It resized perfectly, I think, the way we want. You see here like the word FAI and then the LED is over here. So we see it did cut off correctly. And we see here at the bottom that it does have my command. So I'm typing ls right there. And now we have that auto mounting that I was telling you about. So if I go into mount and I ls there, look at that. It's got my desktop, my favicon, my icons. That's my fake file system in a real OS running emulated. And look at this. If you go into the desktop, you can see the desktop icons and you can actually type them. Let's say cat the Linux command. There you go. And you see that's the code. And you can even vi it if you want. Vi Linux. There we go. And now we can't edit our shortcut, unfortunately. That'd be cool if we could, but there's the basics. And now I got to exit vi. Dun dun dun. Is it Q exclamation mark? There we go. So cool. So we're in Linux right there. And that's that right there. And you press escape to unlock your mouse. And you can minimize this. You can bring it back up and you're still in Linux. And let's go into a cooler demo now. And let's go into this Calibri one. Look at that. Again, auto resizes. It's asking me a question. I could say, yeah, I want to boot that. You see it's auto resizing again. Oh man, this window is bigger than my actual window, unfortunately, that I'm able to demo to you guys. Maybe if I zoom out a little bit. Oh, more. There we go. So you see there, I'm running an entire OS in my fake OS. It's pretty insane. And look, you see I'm moving the mouse. I'm in the OS right now. And if we go, and I think that other Linux had the FS part, the file system part working, but it didn't have the network part working. And this one has the network part working, but not the file system part working. So if we go to network here, clients, IRC. We can literally connect to IRC because we literally have internet on this, which is pretty insane. I mean, it's as meta as it gets, basically. Did it load here? What happened here? Connect. Welcome to... I had this working earlier. Let me just try to run... Do I have like ping or anything? Do I have a ping command? Here's the shell here. Help. Ping. Do I have ping? Because I wanted to show you guys the networking. What we'll do is I'll show you with another one, because then I can also show you some drag and drop. So let's do another cool example that I wanted to show you. So let's go damn small Linux. Or was it tiny Linux? Ouch. So we go damn small Linux. We go download, right? This is me downloading a bootable Linux just off of just some rando website, let's say. Current. There's an ISO right there. So we download the ISO. Oh, this is a bad web server. This is a slow one. Let's pick one that's not slow. What about this one? Current. There we go. Hopefully this will be a little faster. Man, they're both slow because I actually have pretty fast internet. Oh, there we go. Pretty fast internet is an understatement, by the way. I have 1 gigabit per second internet. So we could do a speed test right now just to do a little flex. I don't know what it'll be like while I'm streaming and everything, but should still be pretty fast. I mean, people are watching Netflix in my house too, but yeah, it's pretty fast. Pretty fast. So yeah, I don't know if we need to finish that. It's the same for upload too, but anyway, so, oh man, I wanted to show that download, darn it. So I actually wanted to be in that downloads so that I could show you that it was happening right in Chrome. So there we go. So we have the download there, right? So we go back to my page. So you see at the bottom here, I have the download. So I just click it, drag it onto my desktop, drop it, and there it is right there. Is that not cool? Oh, we haven't got the icon yet for that. Oh, okay, let's do that next. I totally skipped that step. So that's another icon that I wanted to do. So if we go get icon, what was it? Get icon by file extension. I wanted to add to this. So remember, we have no file extensions right now. So let's add one. So let's say the case of image and the case of ISO, we will use an icon that I'm going to call image. Great. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with icon extract on shell 32. So I go into shell 32 and I'm going to grab the icon. You guys will just have to take my word for it again because I don't want to flip to it. Or maybe I will. I'm just trying to find the icon. Where is it here? There's too many icons. Maybe you guys can help me find it. Let me share my window then. Help me find the icon. Window capture? Yeah, there we go. So I'm looking for the CD icon here. Where is it? It's basically like the unknown icon, but it has a CD in the middle of it. And I know it's in here, but now that I want to find it, I can't find it, which is kind of funny. It's just like searching for an icon, needle in a haystack, but it's somewhere here. I don't know how you guys would even help me if you told me like it's number 132. Like I don't know where that is. Where is it here? I'm gonna have to just use the one I pre-made or something because I can't find the thing. Yeah, geez. I mean, this is the game you play when you're doing this kind of thing. But I know it's in here somewhere. I'm probably looking in the wrong spot for it. It's like, unless it's not here, maybe it's the other icon folder. There's another one called image res, I think. Image res. Let me close and open this. I think it was suggesting that last time to me. Darn it. You know, I thought it was in here though, to be honest. I really want that icon, so let's hunt for it. Let's go in here and put Windows icon locations. Here we go. I remember looking this up the other day. So let's assume it's, yes, this is the other one I wanted to try. Oh, sorry guys. Again, I didn't jump to the browser. The browser was here. Oh, the browser was the thing that had the thing in the way. I'm all over the place with my OBS right now, but I searched in Google for Windows 10 native icons, and I found this page that kind of says where they're located. So I wanted to try this other file called image res. It's other DLL file. So let's try that one. Oh, did it not? That's weird. the thing I'm sharing with you guys is literally not the same one. I have two open. There we go. Sorry guys. So now it might be a little easier to find the icon. Still a ton of icons, but the one I'm looking for is it's like this thing, but it's got a CD in it. And if you guys tell me 2 down, 4 left, 8 right, I know it's here, but I can't find it. So frustrating. Well, maybe we just use some kind of generic image then, but that's giving up. Ah, I found it. Finally, it's right there. Okay. Oh, sorry guys. So let's get rid of that. So we got that icon. Again, I'm gonna open it in the junior icon editor. I'll share that one with you guys too. Just so you see the whole process. There it is. Yeah, so that's the icon editor. So let's open our icon. That looks like the image res. That's it right there. Same story, just deleting the big ones. I just care about the 48 one. Actually, I forgot to do this for the Calibri one. In general, I forgot to do this for some of my icons. This is just something I could do to my icons. Maybe I'll do that right now. So just a little icon cleaning. Let me open up the other icons. This is something I do where I'm always trying to optimize files and stuff. It's kind of my second obsession here, or I don't know what my first one is then. So here's the Calibri one. So let's delete those icons that we're not using too, because it just increases the size. I only care about the 32-bit 48 by 48 pixel icon. The other ones I don't care about. So let's just kind of slim down our icons here. The x86 one, yeah, same story. Just if they're smaller, then it's just less to worry about. What else was there? The Linux one I did. The unknown one. What about the Calibri one I've done, and that one I've done now? And then what about the favicon? Where is that? Here. Oh yeah. Well, the favicon legit is used that way, but we could probably get rid of the 32-bit version. Actually, let's just do the same thing. Let's just, all of these, I want to only have the one size, and we'll let the browser figure out the resizing. Because there we go, now they're smaller. All right. So now we've got our image icon. I'm going to move it over here. I've already saved the code. So if we go back to the browser now and I refresh this page, that did not work. I wonder why. Let me go. I wonder if it's like a one-time thing. That would make no sense though. So I delete the image here, refresh again. So the DSL is gone. So if I drag it on here. Why am I not getting the icon? Let's go to the code and try to figure that out then. So for image, oh, I know why. Because it's not the right, it has to be dot at the end. I have to add the dot. I forget that the extension has dot in it. There we go, that instantly fixed it. So now you see here on the page, so you see now how DSL has the proper icon. That's literally the exact same icon I get on the desktop of my Windows. So let's load this up. And actually now I'm going to show you that graphical glitch I was getting involving the styled component. Where was it here? Apps, x86, just this piece here. So if I cancel that out and then I go into DSL here and I open it. Oh man, now that's not working? Oh, okay, there's another piece we need. So now we have in the file function, same thing like what I added here to say that use this icon. I also have to say here, I have to make the same thing for my get process by file extension. Now we have a process that we can link to a file extension. So the default is nothing, no process, but for images and for ISOs, we will open it in x86. There we go. Now if we go back to the browser and double click this, there we go. So you see there, that's wrong. That's not how I want that to look. But if I go into the code and I just put the canvas to max, like I was saying, now when I open DSL, there we go, that looks better. So I say, yes, I want to boot DSL. And it looks a little gibberishy, but that's how it looks. So I'm booting Linux again. I'm booting an even better version of Linux because it's more graphical than that other one. Now this one I'm not going to add to my list. I'm just adding those two, that Linux 4 and the Calibri. That's like such a small amount. It's like less than 8 megabytes. Whereas this DSL is 50 megabytes. I don't want to host that. And one of the cool things about this app, this site that I'm making, is going to be this like idea where users can just drag and drop stuff on. So I'm not going to add every single ISO in there, but I'll probably add more in the future. I want to do Windows 95, Windows. Man, I want to do a million things, honestly. So we'll see how far I get with that. But for now, I just want to let it boot up so that I can show you guys that the networking works. And while it's booting up, let's just look through the code and see if there's anything else that needs done. I mean, we have our first app with file extension support, so we're going to be able to do a lot of other cool stuff in the future. Oh, we didn't do the load images icons dynamically yet. That has to be last. Yeah, that'll be last, but that's part of the OS. Okay, so here we go. So DSL is booting now. So you see here, it's just crazy when you think of this. Like, this is I got a fake OS here, a real OS. I got emulation going on. So here we go. So I'm in DSL, and let's just test out if networking works. So google.com, and look at that. I'm in google.com in the Dillo browser inside of my own website, going through inside my own fake OS, going through like a WebSocket proxy. So you could, yeah, I mean, it's just insane. Like, it's just the stuff you can do here. You could go to my dustinbrett.com website. I'm sure that looks like garbage. This browser is like the most basic browser. So I think that, I don't know if dustinbrett.com will load, but I don't know if it's going to handle WordPress or, oh, maybe, oh yeah, it's got a little bit there. Dustin's Reality, yeah, it really did not load very much there. It doesn't load any images, it looks like. Oh, it loaded the Google image though earlier, so it's hit and miss. If I had my own WebSockets proxy, I would, it would be a little more powerful. So, and in the future I will. I'm gonna go far with this, but this is already pretty insane. Like, it's Inception, man. Inception is all I can say. So anyway, so that's our Linux right there. We have Linux running in our OS. I can minimize it and open my Hello World app and see Hello World. Hello World was slow there, wasn't it? It felt slow the first time. That might be because you're running an emulator at the same time. But yeah, it still works. So anyways, close it. It cleans itself up. And there we go. And we got an icon there. And the icon persists, by the way. That app will stay there if you refresh, because that's part of the storage now. So I have to clear the site storage to get rid of that, actually, because these are the legitimate ones. Boy, we did a lot, guys. We did a lot. Let's do a quick overview, but we did such an insane amount. 30 files got changed here. I mean, I added a bunch of icons and stuff. You guys know I made the file generator. I mostly just followed that basic example, though. I hookified it, added some React hooks. I added a bit of logic for resizing my window. I made sure everything was in the right place. And I added a lot of boilerplate or a lot of things that we're going to be able to use later. Like now we have this file extension stuff. We got more icon stuff. We got processes loading. We got multiple windows. So this first app was almost like a proof of concept. Like it could have been anything. It could have been just another version of Hello World. But I went far with it. And now I've really kind of given you guys something to be like, oh, interesting what kind of stuff we can do here. Because there's still a million things we can add to this, you know? But that's one of the big ones, this emulator. That's pretty cool. Once we have session state in there and we start treating it like a virtual machine where it's going to have menu items, it'll be pretty powerful. But it's already pretty fast. Like you guys saw, it was pretty darn quick. Like here's another example. Here's something I used to use back in the day in my computer repair days, Memtest86. You computer repair guys might know this. I don't know if that's the right website for it. Memtest86 Plus is the one I preferred. Where's the plus one? Is it this one? Seems like their sites changed. There used to be one called Memtest. This is just classic. This is the plus. This is the one. So here you download pre-built ISO. Get the ISO here. Get rid of these pop-ups. Ugh. So I downloaded it as a zip. So I need to unzip it to drag the ISO on. But watch how fast it is. So we drag the ISO on. So there we go. Right there we have our thing. And if I wanted to test an ISO, it's just like, okay, click. Boom, I'm in it right there. Memtest. And then you start testing the memory of the thing. And you can see it's like 1 gigahertz clock, 1 gig of RAM, Intel Core 2. It's just emulating. I actually have a Ryzen 3900X. So But it's pretty neat, you know, just all the stuff it does, and I can't escape it seems. No, but anyways, it's just crazy emulation, you know. And I think that I've hammered that home enough. So let's just commit this x86 emulation via v86, and I'll just paste that. And I think let's just say that's good, you know. Let's do an npm run build to see if it works. And I think it will. It's going to build the file systems and stuff too. And in the meantime, I actually wanted to find a picture so I can show you guys an example of my other bug. Cool, so it builds. So let's commit that. x86 emulation via v86. 30 files changed. Cool. So we're almost done. One other thing I wanted to do quickly is the load icon thing. In regards to drag and drop, when we were doing drag and drop earlier, remember how I've added drag and drop. So let's say I drag in a wallpaper that's a picture. I drag it in. You see how that's completely broken. Because, and the reason why it is if you go into the code, so if that picture had been in the public folder and was part of the initial load, the image would have worked. But because it's trying to load it dynamically, that is not correct. Where is it here? Image viewer. See, within use file info, I was doing, okay, it's a picture, then just use the path. But the path only is real for real files, not for fake files. So all I have to do basically though, to fix that, and I'm just gonna double check where I did it here, is basically just add the fs read command. So the same command I've added several other times, read file, the file, and then getting the buffer as usual, just like I did in v86. And then this is the same path, same wording here. So the only thing that I've added really is that now the icon, instead of coming from the path, comes from the contents of the reading of the file. And in the future, maybe I'll make it so it doesn't have to do this if it's not a dynamic file. But for now, we're just going to do it for all files because that works too. And we have to do the same buffer to URL thing. Same code. And there we go. So now when we go into the browser, and there we go, the picture's already working. And if you remember before we did that height thing, that was something that was happening. You see how now it's a widescreen, but it was stretching there. So now you see our image there is loading with an icon of the actual image, just like Windows does, which is pretty cool. And oh, what happened there? I'm not running the dev environment. Oh, I did another build while running dev, which it never likes that. It is always mad about that, I think. So that's all we got is a white screen. This is the longest stream I've had by far, by the way, because this was a lot to do to get this v86 going, but hopefully it kind of got you guys a cool idea for what kind of stuff we can do here. And we clear storage to get rid of our uploaded dragged files, and we're just back to our normal files. And it feels a bit like an OS. So yeah, load image icon dynamically. And all I had to do there was do buffer to URL and switch to reading the file instead of just passing in the URL. And I'm going to move this into the other notes because that wasn't related to the apps. That's related to the system. And oh man, we're done. We're done. Oh, that was a lot we went through today, guys. I hope you had a good time. I hope you liked it. Please subscribe if you liked it. Hopefully you haven't seen too many of these before, these x86 emulators in fake JavaScript OSs. So hopefully I've shown you guys something interesting. Next stream, I'm going to do that reorganizing of the directory structure a bit, trying to co-locate things, put hooks close to where they need to be instead of just dumping them all in a hooks folder and in this utils folder. It's too generic. We're going to get into animations. I've already figured out what animations need to happen and how to do them with frame or motion. I just need to do it. So I need to play around with it and figure it out and make it nice and clean to show you guys. Hopefully we'll get to the start menu. Maybe even just clicking start menu, having an empty black box appear. At least that's something. And I'll figure out how to get that browser list thing working just so that we can specify, be very explicit to say, we do not support IE11 right now. But that's it. So again, like, subscribe if you like, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a good time. See you in the next one. Bye.